Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Matt Gordon with the Hidden Hockey Podcast. Day 3 in a row of streaming for the various junior hockey drafts. But this is the one that I really think was the crown jewel to cover this week. The WHL first round of the basically the draft. Very excited for this class. I think there is a really, really deep group of 2011s that will be selected today. I personally have never had so many kids ranked for the Western Hockey League draft in like the 3 or 4 years that I've been doing it pretty consistently. I really think this 2011 class is a special grouping of kids across all the regions available to the Western Hockey League. I also scheduled this stream a little early just because of the depth of talent that's available. Feel free to include, your thoughts and things like that if you're an avid follower of the Western Hockey League draft. For those that are newbies, just to familiarize those and get everybody on the same playing field here, the OHL and the QMJHL draft usually a year earlier. So they'll draft 16-year-olds usually. But the Western Hockey League drafts kids usually in their 14 or 15-year-old years. So it's always a year younger. So this is a younger grouping of kids, but my God, it's a class and a half, that's for sure. Very excited to see where certain selections happen. There's obviously clear drama right now with the top 3 selections between Parker McMillan, Madden Deneau, and Braden Jugnoth. Obviously, those 3 have probably jumped ahead of the rest of the class, but there's a real solid group of players underneath. The top defenseman, in my opinion, is Eli Vickers. You have, various other guys that are available in this draft. American-wise, you have Owen Moulton might be a consideration to come to the Western Hockey League, who plays for Shattuck St. Mary, played for the U14 team this year and was really dominant along with Jack Kaiser, who's not even eligible for any sort of draft until the following year. So really intriguing there. Then you add a lot of kids from the CSSHL. You add on guys like Artelo Forstall, Brody Antignani, Kenzo Gibson, Micah Montgomery, Danel Ramazanoff, Easton Pitts, Matteo Dufour. There's a grouping of really solid talent that just kind of fills the board as we go along here. But it's a really exciting group. And it'll be really cool to cover. So, you look at the order here, obviously there's still consideration of maybe there being some trades, maybe not. Wenatchee here has the potential to maybe move up into the first overall selection. Kelowna currently owns it right now. I know trade discussions have been frequent in a flurry to see whether or not that pick actually moves or not. It should be very fun to see what exactly happens tonight. And if you have any questions during the chat, you want to talk about these prospects live during the stream, anything like that, feel free to leave your questions off to the side on the chat and I'll answer those when appropriate. You could be like John Neal, for example. WHL prospects have the craziest names. They do indeed, John. It'll be curious to see who exactly is selected. The grouping of kids. I mean, obviously I just mentioned Kenzo is a name you don't normally see. Looking at some of these others, you have Cullen, Cruz, Lachlan, Ryder, various Riker. There's always some versions of K's and, different names that you just normally don't see spelled a certain way. And I don't know if that's just a West Coast thing and that's just the mentality across Canada and the U.S., but it just always seems to be the craziest names come out of the Western Hockey League, which makes it a nice unintended consequence of the draft as well. Very excited to see this group, though. We still got a little bit of time. I made the mistake thinking this draft was at 7 Eastern time, but it's actually at 8. So we have a full hour before they even pick. So we will get through more of this class throughout this, and, we'll see what exactly happens here. But there is a good, solid group across goaltending, defensemen, and forwards that any WHL team would be happy about. Most years, I probably have a list that I personally diagnose of like 25 to 30 players. This year, my list stopped at 52. So there's a clear amount of depth in this grouping, a lot of different intriguing guys that have shown really good upside. And I would argue there's 3 or 4 really legit candidates that could go number 1 overall in this draft. The intrigue is palpable. It's probably the closest I've ever seen for the Western Hockey League draft in terms of guys that could make their position at number 1. And it really depends on style fit. You can look at a guy like Madden Deneau, has been an incredible offensive talent, one of the most dynamic players that are available in this draft today. Somebody who's put up oodles of scoring at the Alberta Elite Hockey League U15 level. He's just been everything and then some for that Red Deer Rebels team that basically was undefeated this year. I think they were like 45-0 or something crazy like that. But it is a grouping that is incredible to watch. You could go with a bigger power forward frame than Parker McMillan, 6'2" and 180 pounds already. Just shy of being 15 years old. So he's somebody who's a little bit later in the birth year, but has an incredible amount of skills. Definitely more of a power forward style talent with good straight line skating as well. Actually, a very good accelerator as well. Somebody who I think could really, really be a very effective Western Hockey League player pretty immediately. And then you look at the one kid who actually went up and moved from the U15 level and played U18s, and that's Braden Jugnoth. I was probably late on him for that reason. But this is a kid who's been incredible throughout the year. I know I've personally caught I think 1 or 2 games of his, not enough to get a complete picture, but enough to see the real, talent that exists within Braden Jugnoth. To be able to play as young as he did in that league and be as, I wouldn't say exceptional, but a very good talent in that league speaks a lot to the quality of player that exists with Braden. Defensively, you have your depth. You have a lot of different players to consider. The cream of the crop to me, though, is Eli Vickers. Really good puck mover. Similar to, a guy like Cruz Jim, who was selected last year for the Northern Alberta Extreme. Vickers has led Delta, a lot through the year. He's been kind of their main source of offense, a real big power play weapon. Definitely somebody who I think will translate very easily to the Western Hockey League, and there's a lot of intrigue in terms of what he can bring to the table. You can look here. There's some, potential goaltending as well. One guy who I think I just want to mention, it's not necessarily that I think he's going to blow the doors off or anything, but it's just a guy I think deserves a little more notoriety, is Grayson Skriba, playing for the Sherwood Park Flyers U15 program. He's also played some AA this year. This is a kid who I've always been impressed with throughout my showings or watches of his game. I think he's somebody who the sky is still a limit for him. He was very good at the for the Northern Alberta Extreme last year at the AAA level at that age group. Came to the John Reed Memorial and played really well there as well. There's a really, really interesting talent that exists there, along with guys like Gavin Craig, who's a really good goaltender. A lot of different players that I think have a good intrigue goaltending-wise as well. We'll go ahead here with the questions here. So Mole Man Forever. Hey, new commenter. Hello. Stick around and subscribe if you really enjoy the prospect coverage. Hamilton's comments regarding shortstop players might alienate a few kids. Jugnoff being a primary one whose brothers were all stingy with where they would report. Yeah, those comments were interesting, right? We should just probably address them right now. Bruce Hamilton was very clear in terms of not wanting guys that would be there a year and leave. He seems to be of the philosophy, if you're here for a committed amount of time, which on face value isn't necessarily that controversial. It's just the fact that it's a different trending development world, and people are going to find their best development opportunity in the way that they can. So you got to kind of move with the times. I don't necessarily agree with the fact that, I don't want to say that Bruce Hamilton's point isn't valid. I think it is a valid point, but at the same token, you can't be benign or unaware of the trends around you, and you got to be creating a competitive team regardless of how it comes through. But that's something that obviously has pervaded the draft as well. It's been something that's been a really interesting dynamic to kind of follow. And I think all CHL teams are watching too. The Canadian Hockey League is trying to find exactly where their footing is comparatively to the USHL, comparatively to the NCAA, even comparatively to U Sports. There is so much interesting developments that are coming out of this just because of the new development landscape we're in. And Bruce Hamilton really stirred the pot with those comments, didn't he? So it's a fascinating issue to look at and watch. But clearly, Cologne was taking a stance, and they've decided this is where, if you want to be here, you're going to be here for the long term. That'll be just something to watch, and it'll probably make a curious decision on who gets selected here. But like you said, maybe Jugnoth was somebody that they were kind of looking at, but they probably made those comments with that in mind, letting people know, hey, this is where we stand, this is where we're at. And then kids can decide from that point. But it is an interesting dilemma for sure, and something we can't ignore. Thanks for that, old man. So John Neal says, how can they hold them to a commitment though? So a lot of CHL kids, they sign are basically SPAs or standard player agreements, and those are agreements to kind of fulfill commitments. Now, on a base level, there's a basic legality to a lot of it. But at the end of the day, these kids can do what they want. Like, it is purely a contract to kind of represent both people and say, hey, listen, in good faith, I want to represent and be a part of your organization. But, those kids are also going to find their opportunities elsewhere, right? They're going to find their opportunity to go and find the best path for them, which is well within their right. They are completely within their right to explore that. They're completely within their right to really look internally at themselves and say, this is what I want to do in my career. And they shouldn't be held to that, right? Like, I think there's choice in development that is allowed. Obviously, if you burn a team, it's going to look bad. So maybe move respectfully in that regard. And that's something that we look at guys like Oscar Hemming having an issue with moving in a way that made sense. Adam Valentini, same thing with him and Kitchener this year, and moving on to the University of Michigan late in the process. I think there's a respectful way for these kids to move and develop in the way that makes the most sense to them. That being said, you have to do it in a way that is very professional. And there are examples where kids just leave because selfish reasons, which isn't on its nail and on its footing. It's not a bad thing. It's just something that you, I think, have to manage respectfully, because nobody wants to burn bridges, right? I think that's just, you do that in your professional life too. That's just the way you have to handle this situation. And it's just created an interesting dilemma that we're going to probably have to watch a lot going forward with these prospects, not only at the junior level, but at the NCAA level and even at the pro level. All right, 15 on here. So welcome to those that are new. Again, my name's Matt Gordon. For those that don't know, I run a hidden hockey podcast. So like, obviously this podcast is about the junior hockey circuit. So like WHL, QMJHL, OHL. I do some, prospect evaluations for the NHL as well, in terms of like the NHL draft, not for the NHL, but just talking about players that could go to the NHL. And then I do a little bit of a focus internationally too on some non-traditional countries. So if you like that style of content, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I'm going to have a lot more coming out through the summer as well as into next year. And I'm just really pumped to kind of talk hockey with you guys. So if this is your speed and this is what you enjoy, feel free to subscribe. John Neal's a recent subscriber. He's seen the gospel. He knows what it is. He seems to enjoy the content. I don't want to speak for him, but want to grow this community as much as we can. I'm trying to shoot for about 500 subscribers by the end of the NHL draft. So that's at the end of June. I really feel like this is a community that can grow and really learn from each other, as well as me teach you some things as well. So hopefully that's an appealing thing to you. If it is, please subscribe, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, we still got a little bit of time here. We got about an hour. And again, my fault. I probably should have started this stream later, but hey, we're having discussion, which is great. I think in terms of where I think certain teams will draft, obviously Vancouver having those 2 picks is really fascinating. I think there's a real opportunity for these kids, for Vancouver to really kind of bolster their roster. Obviously, losing a guy like Ryan Lynn next year is crucial. Mathis Preston is going to be a kid that's going to be pretty heavily leaned upon. But they got to build around him, right? So there's going to be some bona fide talents out of this grouping that are going to find their opportunities here elsewhere. So, whether Vancouver goes and makes moves to kind of bolster their roster and allow their team to flourish to the team that they need to be. That's going to be something to really watch and look at going forward. Obviously, they have other guys like Crosby and Matejchuk's a really good defenseman. You can look at other guys like Will Sharp. Maybe does he come back next year as an overager? We'll have to see there. They have another young forward here in Louis Oscar Holowaychuk. The younger Iginla, Joe Iginla, is there. Preston probably comes back. Do they end up retaining Tobias Tomic? We'll have to see what happens, Vancouver, but they're going to be looking to probably rebuild on the fly with this young group. And it should be an interesting group to watch and follow going forward. We can look at teams like Kelowna, for example. Kelowna obviously is going to be looking to have teams that stay committed, and obviously with Bruce Hamilton's vision of what he believes. Does that deter kids? Does that allow for a stronger team? It's yet to be seen, but they're going to have a lot of interesting decisions to make, right? Does a guy like Harrison Bodiger come back and play there and be their starter next year? Defensively, they're going to probably lose Peyton Kettles to the pros. Madison Lasley, he's graduating from that program. Defensively, they're going to have a lot to kind of figure up and shore up, right? TJ Ginla, he's going to sign a pro contract and be gone, right? There's various guys on this group. They're going to just have to fill the gaps in some way, shape, or form. How are they going to do that? It's going to depend on what happens today and what they do going forward in the import draft as well. We'll have to be really curious to see what happens here, but there's some real serious talent coming into this league, and there will be some serious intrigue with this 2011 class. We'll go to the question here. Moment says, okay, here's a question. How do you see this draft stacking up to the last draft or previous ones? High end players, depth-wise, or even as far as unique talents? Is this a strong draft? Moment, it is a phenomenal draft. I will say that. This class is special. You look at the top three. I mentioned them a little bit earlier, maybe before you got on, but Madden Deneau is an incredibly dynamic player, somebody with a lot of offense. But is a good all-around player as well. You're not looking at like a Celebrini type. I think that's unfair to say for Deneau, but this is a kid who should come into the Western Hockey League and be a pretty immediate impact player. Parker McMillan is more of a power forward style player, so somebody you're going to have that drives the net a little more, good straight line skater, a little bit more abrasive, but still has a lot of skill and game to him as well, and can goal score with the best of them, especially when he's probably one of the best goal scorers in this class along with Madden Deneau. Then you look at a guy like Braden Jugnoth. He played at the U18 level as a 14-year-old this year and looked very good. That speaks to maturity in his game and also probably speaks to maturity in him as a person. Obviously, clearly a dynamic talent in order to be able to do that. I was late on him, but all three of those guys are bona fide franchise-altering players. You look at defensemen like Eli Vickers. I think the defensive class this year is pretty solid. I think the forward group, everywhere across the board, there is a ton of depth. I usually rank about 25 to 30 kids myself and kind of just watch the draft. I have 52 ranked this year. So there's, to me, a clear standing of really good developed players. And I think a lot of that growth is due to the CSSHL and the academies that are developing here. They are incredibly expensive to play at, but the development is unmatched. There is a ton of interesting opportunity here with some goaltending as well. Like Gavin Craig is a really high-end goaltender. I mentioned Grayson Scriba earlier is a really decent goaltender as well. There is just a lot to like out of this group overall. There's even some, kids like Ramazanov is a kid who's a little bit smaller, shifty, but he's a hell of a player, real water bug style guy. Plays differently than like a shorter guy like Logan Stankoven would have, but he's still an incredibly skilled player. Also really not timid either. He's somebody who's not going to bowl people over in the corner being a smaller guy, but he's not going to be afraid of getting in those corners either. There's a real intrigue to a lot of these guys, and there's high-end skill throughout. There's bigger framed kids that might develop into power forwards in this grouping as well. Overall, and it's spread out pretty well as well. The Northern Alberta Extreme has had a team that's been a wagon for a few years now. There's probably 5 or 6 kids that'll go in the first 2 rounds easily. I'm probably even being conservative with that. All all these leagues have produced really well. I'll be honest. Even the Saskatoon, their Saskatchewan leagues, they have found real good talent as well. But it seems like Western Canada in general seems like they're the king of development right now. They just have found ways to get really good players and just make it happen. They're just kind of the gold standard of hockey development in North America right now. That was a really long answer to your question, but thank you for the question, Mole Man. And yeah, so John Neal says, are these leagues on Flow? Yes, they are. So the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League is on there. Obviously, the U18 and U15 circuits are all on there. I believe the Winnipeg AAA circuit is also on Flow. There is the CSSHL is on Flow. They're on there all the time. Yeah, a lot of the leagues are really on there. I mean, pretty much everything you can get from like the WHL perspective is on Flow Hockey. The OHL draft is a little different because the OHL draft has the GTHL is very secretive about streams and things like that. They're not necessarily the most open. I would say that like the Quebec League has some stuff on Flow as well with like the QM 18 AAA. So like the Quebec under 18 circuits on there, the Quebec under 15 circuits usually on there as well. Prep schools are on there as well. Live Barn kind of fills in a lot of like North American junior like youth hockey. So like the Honey Bakes, the Little Caesars, those types, Shaq St. Mary, those tend to be more on Live Barn or USA Hockey TV. Ton of grouping there. But yeah, there's a lot of leagues on there for sure. And you can't go wrong with Flow. I'm not trying to pimp them out right now, but they're just a really good resource. And then John Neil, is it Majirison? Hopefully I said that right. But yeah, the Quebec U18 League. I've caught viewings this year on them as well. I'm going to do a QMJHL stream later this year as well. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see what happens here. But there's a real good group of players. I'm just impressed by how much quality there is comparatively to the average year, and it's just a fun group to really watch and analyze. So yeah. Any other questions offhand, feel free to leave them on the side here. But in terms of what I think will happen order-wise, if you had to if I had to make a decision today, where do I think players are at? I think Deneau stays 1. If Kelowna keeps the pick, I think he seems to be the lean. And then I would assume Parker McMillan can go 2. And then after that would be Jugnoff 3 in my view to Wenatchee. That would be if everything stays the same. Obviously, if there's a move up at all or anything like that, that might change my perception and decision. But it'll be curious to see what happens. I think there's a real intrigue to where certain picks may or may not move. I should probably look. And by the way, if you guys don't follow me on X, which is Twitter for those that like to keep it old school, Hidden Hockey Podcast, you can look me up in the same name. I've been doing a lot of tweets throughout the year as well. So just another way to get more information or resources on all the drafts, as well as international talents. But just a solid group out here, like in terms of the quality of talent, the way things are, coming into play with these prospects. Sorry, I kind of rambled there. I did not mean to ramble. It's just been 3 days of streams will do that to you, right? Anyway, Moleman says I can go all day, LOL. Me too, brother. Me too. That's why I have this channel, right? Moleman Forever again says, early to say, but how does the top 3 of this drafts compare to DuPont, Schultz, McKenna type for upsides for WHL play? You're right in that it's early to say. I would put Deneau and McMillan in that grouping. Now, in terms of where I would rank them right now, I think it's, like you said, it's too early to say. I think I would still rank those 3 ahead of Deneau and McMillan. I think, to me, if you had to give me an order, DuPont would be my first. I would go McKenna after, then Schultz, then probably Deneau and McMillan, like right with each other. That being said, all 5 guys will be immediate. I mean, I think you're looking at McMillan and Deneau being at least 50 to 60 point guys in their rookie year. Um, I don't think that's an unfair expectation for them. I think they're quality talents. I think they bring a lot to the table. Would I call either exceptional? I would say no, just because I think that bar is so high. And I think even I would say the only guy that is exceptional out of that group is really DuPont. I think DuPont to me is right up there with a number 1 overall pick in 27 for the NHL draft. The only guy that I think really has a chance of maybe taking over him is Nazar Pravalov, who's a Russian kid who is unbelievable. One of the best goal scoring prospects there's been in a minute. But I would say that if you had to rank the 5, I would say DuPont first, McKenna second, Schultz third, probably Deneau fourth, and McMillan fifth. But they're all quality talents, and they do stack up pretty decently. And then he said, that's what I figured too. I also have DuPont in his own level. Yeah, that kid is just, he's done so many impressive things and broken so many records. And you just watch him, and it's so natural to watch this kid break out. And, I think he's even better than most defensive prospects I've seen. Like, he just has this special quality to the way he game breaks and makes plays and skates, and his offensive prowess is beyond his years. Like, there is just such a quality to his game that is just unmatched. And that to me brings the real exceptional status moniker to that. That's what I see as exceptional status. There's not an exceptional status kid every year like we're seeing. Yes, kids are getting better. They're definitely there's higher quality of talent comparatively to 10 years ago, but we can't label a kid exceptional when there's 4 other kids like them. And I think that's why a guy like Ryan O'Rourke didn't necessarily get exceptional status, because the kid was probably the best player in terms of the 2011s and 2010s. But did he stand out more and at a higher quality than a guy like McDavid did, or Tavares did, or even Bedard? I mean, those guys had freakish statistics. You watch them play across multiple levels in tournaments, and they just were so much clearly ahead of the game. And DuPont has that quality. But I would say that the rest of them, McKenna has shown it to a point. But I think there's just such a nuance to what is truly exceptional. And that'll be something that we kind of it needs to be tailored a lot more, for sure. And Moleman said forever, yeah, exceptional is a term thrown around too often. I totally agree. You might get 2 or 3 of them a decade. Like, I think that's kind of a safe assumption. Now, granted, is there a quality of talent that's growing? Absolutely. No question about it. But it's something that needs to be out of the vocabulary of a lot of people. Like, exceptional isn't just a sexy term to use and plug on somebody for more clicks. And I think it's a little bit more media driven than people would like to say it is. I think it's definitely about, I think, like I said, it's used almost like as a political term instead of it being a true evaluation tool, which is something that hopefully gets corrected in the future. But thanks for that, Mole Man. It's just, we keep going here. We got a lot going on. Where was it going here? I'm not going to throw my personal rank. I'll just kind of mention them as the picks come through tonight. Just because, I mean, I've kind of already alluded to what my rank is, but it's fascinating to see. It's going to be really fascinating to see what happens tonight. Whether picks fly last minute. I'm actually going to check my X feed right now to see if anybody publicly, if trades have been announced or anything like that. So far, I haven't seen anything, but I'm also talking to you guys and not really tracking as much as I normally would. So if you guys see it, throw it in the comments too. If you guys are looking and happen to see something I'm not, I don't have an ego. You can tell me. So we'll go ahead here, and Woman says it's a marketing word like generational. It absolutely is. I mean, it's used as a moniker, right? Like it, and I don't think that's fair. I also don't think it's fair to the kids at all. Like I think it's if a kid truly has that designation, it shouldn't be a pressure point for him. It should be something that is just illuminated as him being a true quality talent. But a lot of times it's used as kind of a pressure tactic. And then John Neal says, I'm surprised the OHL didn't let O'Rourke in just from a business standpoint. Well, that kind of goes to what I was saying, right, John? I think it can't be used as a political pawn. Like, exceptional status cannot be used as a political pawn to help save a player in your league. Like, if you're going to use it as an evaluation tool to say this kid's truly better and has exhausted all development opportunities at his age level, then I think that's that's like a way to look at it in an appropriate standard. But you also can't be hurt by the fact that a kid may not be at the level you expect him to, and you got to do right by the player. So I think that's what the OHL did. I really do. Like, I think, you start to have a standard where when you start to let people in every year, is it really truly an exceptional talent? And I think they're really evaluating this stuff. Like, and it's smart for them to do that, because if you create this situation where a kid needs to be this or a kid needs to be that, and this is the standard they're set, and a kid sets that standard in the very next year, but maybe doesn't have the mental maturity or the ability to translate that at a higher level, all of those things have to be looked at with nuance. And I think Hockey Canada in general is right to look at it in an appropriate way. And I do think O'Rourke was a truly gifted player, but in my personal viewings of him too, I also saw a kid that probably was not, to me, he wasn't exceptional to the degree that a McDavid was, or a Bedard was, or a Tavares was, or a Crosby was. Like, he didn't carry that level of exception to me. And that standard is moving a little bit, but I also think too, it's how you approach it has to be pretty consistent across the board. And I know that's hard to do across eras, but you do have to look at it, and that's the challenge, right? So that's, I think, why they did what they did. Moleman says, you have any dark horses for this draft, like players who scouts seem to underrate? Yeah, I mean, I think the American class this year is really solid. A kid like Ethan Zhang from the Dallas Stars elite program is somebody that I think is a real good player. Nixon McLean, who plays for Rink Hockey Academy Kelowna, he played at the U17 level this year, so he was playing at a different level than most of these prospects, but still doing very good. I think he's a really intriguing player that probably should get some second or third round consideration. The Saskatchewan kids, I think, have some real intrigue. I look at a guy like Josh Kohler, Lachlan Vandal, Caleb Philp. They all carry really good qualities to them that, to me, seems like a top 3 selection. Another American that I think deserves a little more notoriety is Arjun Mangandu, who played for Mount St. Charles this past year. I think there's a lot of intrigue too. A lot of these guys, but those are just a few. There's, to me, though, quite a bit that are underrated in my view, and we'll talk about them as they come through the draft. And then Moleman says there's one American goaltender that's supposed to be really good. I think you're alluding to Owen Ryan, who plays in Minnesota. I believe he's been playing high school hockey for, I want to say, St. Thomas is the school, St. Thomas Academy. I personally, I can't speak on him because I have not caught viewings of him, but I have heard the same things, that he's a really quality talent. I didn't rank him purely for that reason, but that's another kid who could have been considered. He probably will be considered as like a top 2 or 3 round guy as a goaltender. So, yeah, I definitely think there's real intrigue there too. 26 strong. Hey, appreciate those that have been on. Again, if you're new, be like Moleman, be like John Neal. Let's carry this to the draft. And if you guys have any comments during the draft, feel free to find with reactions. Find it. If you guys even want to talk about things non-Western Hockey League, I'm not going to stop you, nor am I going to not answer the question. So feel free to throw in what you want to throw into. This is what the channel is all about. So really appreciate those that have been on, and I really appreciate, if you're new, find a way to join the family, subscribe, like, share the content, and keep people aware, and let's build this little hockey nerd community together, right? So thanks for that, Mole Man. I think that's who you're alluding to, right? You can comment if that's the case. But yeah, so 34 minutes strong. We're rolling through here. We're getting more and more people on the stream. Appreciate it for those on here. For those wanting to watch the draft, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but Victory Plus is offering the draft for free on their website, which actually I'm going to load up right now just so I remember it. And I'll have it up here, probably off to the side. I'll probably do it closer at 8 o'clock, but Victory Plus is the platform you're going to want to look for to watch the draft. So just keep that in mind. I won't be showing that Victory Plus feed there just for copyright reasons. And also, it's a blessing that they even do it in the first place. So I don't want to ever disrespect what they do. I think they do a really good job with the Western Hockey League. So, Mole Man says, do you see many of these ranked American kids actually reporting? Are these going to be possibly JP Hurlberts who may 50-50 show up for 1 year? It depends on the kid, right? I think nobody that I think the only one I think could do that, and it's harder to do in the Western Hockey League because you're not. I mean, these kids are 14, 15, right? Like, where are they going to go? Anybody that I think could go to the Western Hockey League right now wouldn't be in this draft. Like, they would be. I think these kids that will be selected will be in the Western Hockey League for a few years. That's just my personal view. Owen Moulton is a kid. I think he's the top American available for 2011s from any sort of Western Hockey League eligibility consideration. I think he's a legitimate top 5 candidate. He was excellent. But I think it depends on the team, right? Like, Owen Moulton might make sense for Kelowna or might make sense for, you can look here. Kamloops has always had good success of getting Americans. Like, it just really depends on the group, right? Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens here. But I'm very curious to see. There will be a big grouping of Americans. If I were to guess the amount through the first round, there might be like 4 or 5 that get picked in the first round, and then I think you're going to see a lot more tomorrow, because tomorrow is rounds 2 through 15. So there's going to be some decisions that have to be made from, maybe in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. You take a flyer on a kid who has WHL eligibility, maybe doesn't come over this year, but may next year. I think a lot of teams are going to consider those things. So thanks for that. Owen says it's uncharted waters. Teams know more than me, but I'm skeptical, especially if you're an East Conference team. I am, but I'm not, because honestly, the Western Hockey League has done an incredible job developing a lot of the elite talents, right? Like, Celebrini could have been a Western Hockey League kid. He just decided to go the prep level. And I think he would have been very successful in the Western Hockey League. I mean, he's clearly been very successful in the National Hockey League. So it really just depends. But I think there's such faith in what the Western Hockey League is doing right now developmentally. To me, they're right up there with the OHL in terms of what they've done to produce good quality talent. And I would argue lately they've been even better than the OHL about that. And they just play a different game. And it's something that I think is more suited to the professional game, which is why so many kids are going to the Western Hockey League. But I do think Americans are looking at it. And I think it's particularly those on the West Coast. Like, the Minnesota kids may not pursue that unless you're a kid like Owen Moulton, who's truly grown exceptional. But I think sorry, exceptional was the wrong term, but like truly grown out of the situation they're in right now. But there's a lot of really curious decisions for a lot of these organizations and places. California is going to be a real depth area for the Western Hockey League, right? There's more and more kids developing out of these elite talents out of California. You could look at Oregon has developed a few kids now all of a sudden. Washington State, like, Colorado, like they're Texas even. Like, there is a large grouping of American kids that are going to be looking the Western Hockey League way. And I think JP Hurlbert being from Texas might be the standard that allows a lot of these really elite Texas kids to be drafted today. But it'll be curious. I think it's really just a case-by-case decision at that point. Parker Garlitos says, who you got going first overall? Are you Parker McMillan? You might be. But I think, personally, I think it might be Madden to know. But it wouldn't surprise me to see Parker McMillan. So if that is you, I might think you're going number one overall, but we'll see what happens. Either way, you can't go wrong with either of those or Braden Jugnoth. Like all three of those guys are definitely in consideration for one. Um, but we'll have to see. I think it's really just dependent on what the decisions are of the teams, but all three are definitely number one quality guys. If you put me in a room and said, hey, you're forced to make a decision, I think it will be Danault. But I would understand either any of those three would make a lot of sense. So Moleman says a lot of the recent high-end talent available works in the Dubs' favor. 100%. You know, like there has been a real solid group of elite talents that have come through the Western Hockey League, and that is a huge pull for them, right? Like that is a huge situation to you know, there's just a lot of everybody's looking for that next step, right? Like it was just like in the USHL, people started going to Chicago Steel because they liked the success that Owen Power had, and then that turned into Macklin Celebrini playing in the CHL. I mean, for Chicago, and then Adam Fantilli played before Celebrini in the USHL. Like trend analysis is something that all these elite prospects do. So like the more successful you can be, the more prospects are going to want to come to you, and that's just led to a lot of people going to the Dub. Parker says, not me. Thank you for confirming. You never know. You never know. But thank you for confirming. Jacob, hello. Again, ton of new people. Hello, hello. If you like the content, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff. Western Hockey League, QMJHL, OHL, NHL Draft. If you want somebody to be nerding out with guys that you've never heard of, feel free to do so. But I'll also talk about the top guys as well. Just keep those in mind. And then Jacob Silverberg says, is the CSSHL or the AEHL going to get more draft picks? I personally think it's going to be the CSSHL, but obviously like the Alberta Elite Hockey League has got some real intrigue too. Obviously you got Mandano. You know, there's a ton of other guys. I'm looking right now at my personal ranking just to kind of see different guys I have in mind. You know, Connor Baines is a kid who, not Connor Baines. Finn Visser, who's a teammate of Mandano's, Kyle Witchin, Wyatt Olson. You know, there's a solid group. I mean, there's even kids from Winnipeg's AAA that I think could be selected. There's so much depth across the board this year. It just seems like it's just a super quality grouping of players. So we'll have to see. Parker says, what do you think about the JPHL and drafting players? You know, obviously Liam Pugh has been very successful, and you know, credit to him for being able to start that trend. As far as what I think this year from the JPHL, I don't know. That's the one league that I think might have some kids picked, just probably not first rounders. I think they're an up-and-coming league. I think there's a lot of intrigue in terms of how they've been able to offer development in a different way. They might be able to take advantage of kids that can't afford academies and they go to the JPHL because it's cheaper. They're going to probably fill a lot of the depth in the later rounds, in my view. I think there's a lot of real opportunity in that way because, you know, it's a different style. It's a different way of developing. And I don't think it's a bad thing. To me, there shouldn't be a stigma on the JPHL, but we'll have to see how this goes. So, yeah, we'll see what happens here. And then who do you have going number one overall? Right now, I have Mandano, but honestly, I think Parker McMillan or Braden Jugnoth, any of those kids deserve to be number one. Like and even like Eli Vickers, there's various others. There's a strong quality of kids, but I think Mandano might be just like slightly ahead of these other guys. And that is where I have it at. So when does it start? It starts at 8. And for the record, I'm not putting the live feed on my personal on this stream. Like I won't have the video for it. But you can watch there at Victory Plus. It's a free, I think you just got to sign up for an account. I'm going to do that shortly here, but they'll have the draft on there. I'll be following along just like this. So I'll have the picks go as they are. I don't know if I'll be watching the feed because I want to pay attention to you guys on here and answer any questions, but it'll be in 29 minutes. It'll have this draft start going, and then we'll just see what happens. I think there's a lot of real fascinating things that are going to happen. But it'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern time here where I'm at. But Mountain time, I think it's 5 p.m. there. So it'll be curious to see what happens there. But Nazem says, "Hi, is this the WHL draft?" And Kobe Pellick's mom. First off, congrats. If you're still on here, congrats to Kobe. He's definitely deserving of being drafted today, and hope the best for him. It'll be on Victory Plus. So if you heard me and you jumped off, sorry you missed the well wishes. But if you're on here, good luck to Kobe. Good luck to the family. Wishing you best of luck and best luck in his future. Definitely deserving of being a high-end selection. And hopefully he gets picked in the first round tonight, because then we'll all cheer for you. But yeah, it'll be on Victory Plus. Does the USNTDP influence draft decision? Like, a kid who wants to go there might be drafted lower than a kid than other kids if they prefer the NTDP over the WHL. Stuff in consideration. Owen Moulton might be a guy who considers that. I think that'll be a telltale. If he's drafted early, to me, he's inclined to go Western Hockey League. You look at guys like Carter Morris decided to sign in the WHL, but also, decided to go the NTDP route. I think everything is kind of case by case. I do think it influences a little bit because the kid might have a potential lean already for next year's class. But their decision comes next year, right? So I think you're taking the draft and drafting the kid when you have a real confidence that I'll come into the league. But I do think there is some not significant influence, but enough to make decisions difficult. So yeah, I would agree. There's definite influence. It's just a matter of their personal development situation is going to really truly influence what's happening. So Moleman says, we will see if that trade for number 1, Tuanachi goes through or not. We'll have to see. I think it's something we definitely want to follow. And for those in here, like, I'm so busy talking to you guys, but if you guys happen to find anything, put it in the comments. Like, do not be afraid. I'm not afraid to be showed up by you guys and say, hey, listen, I saw this. It'll be fascinating to see what exactly happens, but we'll just have to see, right? It'll be a really intriguing situation if there ends up being a trade, and who knows what they'll take. It'll have to be a really interesting situation. And I'm very curious, as well as all of you are, which is why you're on here. First overall, Easton Pitts, guys. Easton should be a guy who's either a first round or second rounder for sure. I'm assuming you're probably in some way affiliated with him. Obviously, if you guys are rooting for specific players, I wish all these kids luck. I have no ill will towards any of them. I think they all deserve. I'd be a pretty bad person if I had no will to a 14 or 15-year-old just because they play hockey. So, rooting for all these kids. It's enjoyable to watch this stuff. It's enjoyable to cover it, but it's also just enjoyable to see these kids' dreams be lived out. That's the best part about following junior hockey and youth hockey in general, is like, it's the next step for these kids to find their professional dream. And that's the beauty of covering this stuff. If you guys feel the same, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the channel. I talk a lot about it all the time. I am critical to a point, but I try to be fair to these kids as much as I can, because I think it's important that, what I'm saying should not influence how they are as a player. Like, it's just an opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and take it or leave it. And, at the end of the day, they're going to prove me wrong. All right. So do the best they can. Right. And that's always been the philosophy I've tried to carry. So yeah. And, you have Easton Pitts as the GOAT. That's funny. Jacob Silberrick says, any dark horses you got in the AEHL and CSSHL? I mentioned them earlier, a few different guys. It's hard to define like dark horse, but one kid who I think should be drafted higher than probably what most people have him at is Nixon McLean. Plays at the U17 level at the CSSHL, so not playing where a lot of these kids play at the U15 level. He played up. He's a definite player that's interesting. I like, Kyle Whitchin is a player I've really enjoyed watching. Wyatt Olson from the AEHL, both of them, one playing for Sherwood Park Flyers and one playing for the St. Albert Sabres. Finn Visser has played well with Mandano for the Red Deer Rebels and that absolute wagon of a team. There's a real solid group of players that just are fascinating guys to watch. And like I said, I think there's so much depth. I could talk ad nauseum about a lot of these guys, but really, I'll talk with them as they come through the draft. So if you stick around, I will have opinions on all the kids that are picked first round. I won't be doing a second round stream just because one, it's during the day and I work for a living, so I won't be able to do that. But what I'll do is maybe at the end of the night, the best available that are available, I'll put a post up here on the channel, and I'll just kind of say this is where guys fit for me that are high end guys for round 2, 3, 4, and beyond. So I'll probably do that at the end of the stream, which will be later in the day. So we'll see. But yeah, there's a few there I just kind of threw out there, but they'll come through and I'll talk about them more as we go along. Awesome that there's so many people in the chat here. Really appreciate those that are on here. And if you're new, I mean, if you really enjoy the content and you're first off, if we're rooting for a player here, throw them in the chat. Like, you know, obviously Sinet's done his thing and or her thing. I don't want to assume gender, but you know, if you're a family or something that's got a kid that might go in the first round, throw it in the chat. We'd love to root for you guys. Like, this is everybody's dreams coming true that's really evaluated and understood to be a real high-end talent. And there's nothing but positivity in terms of what this draft is and what every junior hockey draft is, right? It's great to see these kids live their dreams, and that's what it's all about. Mole Man says, which clubs do you see looking to take a defenseman in the first round? You know, that's a good question. I mean, ideally, all of them probably have a reason to take defensemen in general, just because you need to fill depth. And I think you have to approach it that way every year. But I could see like Spokane might be looking at a defenseman here at 12. Vancouver having the 2 picks here is one of them. Become a guy like Eli Vickers. That's a possibility. You know, I think Tri-City could probably use another defenseman or 2. Kamloops is always looking for defensemen, and not because they lack it or anything. They just always seem to be teams that do that. Those are a few right now, but it'll be curious to see what happens here. I think there's some real power in what's going on right now and the grouping here, and we'll just have to see what happens. But there's always an opportunity for these kids to do really well here. We'll keep going here. You have Devin M says, thoughts on Taylor Mowbray, 70 points in the AEHL. I'll be honest, I personally have not watched him play. Looking at his production, though, I mean, I got to assume he's going to be in like the second to third round consideration. He's clearly shown up this year and played really well, giving himself a really good draft year. That's kind of where I'm leaning in terms of where I think he's at. But I'm not going to also speak out of turn without really have been able to like watch his game. I just happened to miss him this year, and that's kind of my fault for that. So I don't want, like I said, I don't want to speak out of turn, but if I had to like base on production and like where guys like him typically are slotted production wise, probably going to be a second round pick, which quality pick to him and probably deserving of being so. Kind of what I'm thinking though. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens here. So yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of families here that comment on their kids, and that's fine. Like, you know, my goal is not to be critical. I'm all about celebrating these kids and their accomplishments. They all deserve in some way, shape, or form to be celebrated for what they've done. Playing at the AAA level at all is something I never got to do, and I never had the talent to do so. So all these kids deserve to have their stars for what they've done. But yeah, we'll be curious to see what happens here. I think there's some real intrigue in terms of, you know, different guys that are even guys that I haven't personally seen. Like, there's just a lot of fun stuff here. So we'll see where it goes and what happens here. So I'm going to keep going here. Thanks for the question. Sorry, one sec. Laptop's wigging out here. Jacob Silverberg says, top defenseman in the AEHL. Look at my grouping here of guys. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry about this. 1 sec. Sorry, my laptop's wigging out here. I apologize. This isn't really making for a good podcast, but hey, try my best here. I think one kid, I'm trying to remember if he's actually in the AHL. I think he is. Sorry. Jevin Morrison seems to me the guy that, obviously he was their number one defenseman for Red Deer this year. He seems to be a guy that could be a top 10 selection. I would argue some probably even have him in their top 5. Other guys that I would look at that are intriguing guys to watch. Tyler Thomas is a kid who I think is a solid player. Grayson Veach was somebody that stood out to me in a couple of games have gotten to him. I would say those 3. But obviously, like Red Deer as a whole, their whole defensive unit, I mean, they were undefeated. So, they're probably a pretty good squad with a few different guys that should be fine in the Western Hockey League. So I would say Jevin Morrison to me is probably the clear, in a way, best defenseman. And then there's a gap, but there's still a lot of quality kids. So that would be my lead. Sinat says, what time does it start? It starts in 17 minutes. So it'll be on Victory Plus, like I said. I'm going to actually go and sign here for Victory Plus and get this situated. So I'll have it up on here. You might hear some audio come through the stream, which is, I don't think, a big deal, but I will do my best to get these things going up here. And I'm going to probably do a quick move here. Apologize again. This doesn't make for good content, but I'm doing my best. Let me bounce out here. And again, if you guys are new to the channel, like I said, I do a lot of hockey content, so feel free to subscribe. I'll be doing more going into next year's draft too. It'll be a fun day. I'm just excited and pumped for what's going to happen tonight, and all these kids deserve to, obviously the first round is only happening today. So there's, I think, 22, sorry, not 22. How many picks? Blinking right now. I work today, so I might not be at my best. 23, sorry. At the end of the stream here, I might be a little more tired, but we'll see what happens. I'm going ahead here and signing up. Start watching now. I'm launching the draft. So the draft show already started. I got it fired up here. I'm just waiting to get things situated here.
Into goals of winning the division. On top of collecting their first divisional banner in the Dub, the Bees have set a CHL record for wins by an expansion team in its inaugural season with 37. It's an improbable number that executive of the
go ahead and do this real quick. Bocephus, hello, says, can you compare Jevin Morrison to Hayden Harvey as Alberta defenseman? I'm inclined, I've seen both players. I think Jevin Morrison is just a step above Hayden Harvey in terms of what he brings. He's a little more explosive to me than Hayden Harvey is. Hayden Harvey is a little bit more traditional defenseman. Both players are very good players. I think both, to me, are the top 2 guys out of those that are selected from Alberta. I think I would put Vickers over both of them, but Morrison and Harvey are guys that I think could see first round consideration. Yeah, I mean that's kind of a very base level comparison, but that's kind of my view on them. I think Morrison's a little more explosive. Harvey is a little bit better defensively. Offensively, Morrison seems to have a little bit more dynamic qualities to him. That to me is a good comparable in terms of what I think there. And then is Hayden Harvey the brother of Ben Harvey from Prince Albert? Actually, look real quick because I thought no, but let me confirm real quick.
Penticton's Cinderella run saw them reach the Western Conference Championship in year 1. Now it's up to the team to prove this success wasn't down to luck.
I don't think he is.
Culture and process.
I don't think he is, but I'm going to double check here, just kind of cross-reference.
The way we do things on a daily basis that matter.
In the hockey world, players and staff may be on different teams, but ultimately they are all part of the junior hockey family. Last week, that family was shaken by the unexpected passing of Portland Winterhawks Director of Player Personnel.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think he is, though. We'll see if he is. Sorry, I wish I had a better answer for you, but I don't think he is related. Thanks for that, though. We appreciate the questions, obviously. Will Deneau get one sled addict? I think he will, but again, like I said, I've said it a few times now. It wouldn't surprise me if McMillan got it. It also wouldn't surprise me if Jugnoff got it. I think all three are definitely, in an average year, they're all three number one quality players. So we'll have to see what happens. But I'm very curious to see what goes on here. So
Matt Davidson was 48 years old. Our thoughts are with his wife Jane, his son Hyde, and all of his family and friends.
Sorry, one sec, peeps. All right, 44 strong. Hello, people. This is awesome. Really appreciate everybody that's been on here. It's awesome to be able to talk with a bunch of new people that may or may not subscribe to the channel. If you're new, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I do a lot more hockey content. I know I'm pimping myself out a lot, but trying to grow this community. I have a lot of people that are I'm just looking to find more prospect people that really enjoy the junior hockey space and want to follow these players going forward. And I'll be talking more about a lot of these 2011s that are drafted today. So if you enjoy that content, you enjoy what's going on here, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I'll have a lot more NHL draft, international hockey coverage, and junior hockey coverage in general. So appreciate those that are on here, and do yourself a favor and hit that like or subscribe button on this to spread it around, and let's grow this thing bigger. So we will see here. So Victory Plus loves their garbage ads. Hey, they gotta pay the bills somehow, right, Mole Man? They gotta pay their bills somehow. Tizio says yes, Hayden is Ben Harvey's brother. Thank you for the clarification, Tizio, appreciate it. Thank you. Like I said, there's some stuff I do and don't know, but I'm not going to claim to be an expert in every single aspect of the Western Hockey League draft. So thanks for clarifying. So 45 strong. Appreciate you guys being on here. In terms of different situations, like I said, top three for me are going to be Deneau, McMillan, and Jugnoff, and then Vickers is my four. So that's kind of my top four for now. Obviously, depending on what happens, guys leak trades if they happen to be on here. I would love to hear them. I know there's a few that went on today, but I think they were like later round draft picks, so I didn't feel a need to mention those right now because it's not pertinent to round one. But feel free to keep me updated because talking on here is just my focus, and so I might miss stuff. Here I missed one. If a D goes first round, who will it be? Wouldn't be surprised if Jevin gets it. I think Jevin could be a first round pick. I wouldn't be surprised there at all either. I think he's in that top 10 consideration for sure. Vickers to me, I think is the top 5 guy. I think he to me will be the top guy. I think Jevin Morrison. I think Hayden Harvey will be selected in the first round. Like, there's a group of real quality guys that all could fit in very well here in the first round. So it wouldn't surprise me to see like 4 or 5 of these guys in the first round. I don't think that's an abnormal thing to think about. Even a guy like Wolanski might be a guy who might get picked in the first round. It just happens to be what we'll have to just see what happens, right? And then Forrestal may have an outside chance of cracking the top 3. Yeah, I think there's an outside chance. I think, let me look at where I have him. I think I have him personally ranked-wise I have him at 7, but I could see him in the top 5 too. He's a skilled player. I think there's a lot of quality to his game, and I think he's just an exceptional talent. I'm sorry, I keep using the word exceptional. I apologize. That is not what I mean. Just too busy making too many words. But he's a really quality, gifted hockey player, a good stick handler, brings a real offensive game that is really appealing and very obviously modern now because every kid thinks they can stick out for everybody, but this kid can really do it. So I think there's a real chance that he could go higher than most think for sure. Mossig, hey, what's up, man? It's been a while. What do you think about the U18's World Championships failure for Canada and USA? Canada's going to really look at reevaluating, I think. The thing is, though, is I will say this. For the U.S. and Canada, they also have to understand the world around them is getting better. Like, Sweden has produced very well. Like, Finland has a growing crop of players that were good 09s in this tournament, a good class of 2010s. Juho Nyberg is a kid who's really shown up really nicely at the World Selects Invitational this past week. There's quality across the board in a lot of these nations, and they're growing, and the gap's getting smaller. Everybody's got access to the same resources. You see a lot more like the World Selects Invitational, World Hockey Championship. These high-end elite hockey tournaments are bridging the gap in terms of bringing elite talent together at younger ages. And these other nations are developing from the systems that the Russians, the Canadians, the U.S. have all, created. And everybody's just got to find their way to differentiate, right? Like, so I don't think it deserves to be called a failure for the Canadians and the U.S. as much as it is a celebration of what's happening in Europe and these other countries. Like, they deserve their kudos too. And being a Swede, like, that how Swedish hockey is, the gospel that it's had out there, they clearly have something right going on in Sweden and Finland, and you would argue some parts of Czechia and even in Russia. There is some serious hockey development happening in these other countries, and I think it should be more the focus there as opposed to the failure in Canada and the U.S. I think as North Americans, myself included, we do get hurt when we lose, and that's a natural reaction for things to happen, and change probably should happen. But, at the end of the day, your top talent has to show up. That's the way it has to be, and if they fail to do so, those players internally have to look at themselves, and the organizations do too, right? So, yeah, that's my thought. But I try not to read too much into it, because if you're able to develop really high-end talent, you're able to develop really high-end talent. And that's really always been the focus, I think, of most countries anyway. Hockey Canada has been out to lunch for a while now. They have more talent to work with than anybody else, yet they keep dropping the ball. Yeah, I mean, that's completely fair, right? Like, they're all decisions and situations you have to look at as a country. And I think leadership-wise in Hockey Canada, I think the costs are getting so expensive, and the need for development is getting so much more competitive that Canada can't hold all those resources anymore. Like, I think there's so many different situations and ways that they have to look uniquely to help cultivate that elite talent they've always had, right? Are their kids being missed in the shuffle because of their inability to afford the costs? Is there different situations that they could do developmentally to help these kids be better? Like, there's so many different things that have to be developed and evaluated, right? So I agree that internationally they've suffered and they deserve the criticism. But there is a broader picture here. And I think they're still developing high-end talent. There's still a thing like Western Canada. As you can see in this draft, there's quality talent around the board. They have to find the answer now as to why they can't come together when the big moments happen. So, yeah. Top tier U18s were absent. I mean, that's true. That's a true thing. That's, level playing field. Yeah, they could be more competitive, but at the end of the day, you got to bring what you bring, right? They know the quality that they can bring. They know there's a depth across the board in Hockey Canada. It's, to me, it's an excuse to a point, but at the same time, you got to bring what brings. You just got to bring it in general. You're Canadian, right? You are Canada. You are the presumptive hockey power of the world. The expectation will always be there, and it should be there. But you can't avoid that, right? You got to just show up and be there. And they haven't done that, and that's a real problem. Fletcher McDonald is the best goalie in the draft. I would argue Gavin Craig is, but Fletcher
All
McDonald.
right, take care now. Thank you.
Sorry, I might have to refresh on even who that is, to
We'll
be
have
honest.
more from Danmar on WHL social channels. Lots of praise for guys like Beckett Hamilton and Red Deer, Tyus Sparks in Spokane.
He's a good goalie. I will say that. If you know Fletcher, obviously, I'm assuming you're affiliated with him. Seems like a pretty good goalie. Definitely deserves to be drafted, it feels like. So, rooting for him, too, if that's the case. As I'm rooting for all these kids. Don't give the excuse that the top tier were absent, LOL. You see, I didn't give it. I'm just telling you that there's a real opportunity. Canada's been choking for a while. That's very clear. Nah, same as the World Juniors, top tier playing in the NHL. I'll totally get it. You know, like they're gonna play in the NHL, like but that's across the board, right? That's not just Canada. That's not just Canada, right? They had a ton of kids that played in the NHL, and that honestly, that deserves to be a credit to them for developing kids that are too good for where they're at. You can't stunt kids because you want them at the World Juniors. Like if they're too good for that level, they're too good for that level, and that's still a success. You know, celebrating playing at the World Juniors, right? He would be a menace at the World Juniors, and obviously didn't happen this year. So, and it shouldn't have happened because the kid's too good, and he's clearly a top 10 player now in the National Hockey League. You could argue top 5 now. So him needing to be there would be a waste of time. Fletcher plays for Edmonton CAC. Yes, you're right. I just had to refresh myself. I think I've had a few games of him. Nothing that I thought like, you know, I guess it wasn't anything that at least right now, I'm not remembering it. There's a lot of kids to track, so there will be some things I miss along the way, but he looks to be a pretty quality talent. So, you know, rooting for you, Fletcher. Anyway, so let's see. Moleman says here. Sorry, one sec. My computer's wigging out again. Canada should start letting the superstars play the World Juniors to take that gold medal back. I mean, yeah, sure, I guess, but like it just depends on. And if a kid's outgrown the level, he's outgrown the level. Like you can't bring him back because you're hurt. You can't get a gold medal. Like if he's, that's his decision too. At the end of the day, right? Like if Celebrini, I mean, how is he going to tell San Jose like, hey, I'm your best player. Like you gotta let me play the World Juniors. Like, no, they're gonna tell him to sit his ass down and play for the San Jose Sharks. So, not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Mossick says Bjork was missing too. Yeah, exactly, right? You know, Bjork is, to me, a top 5 talent in the NHL draft. Like, I think, I've said it all year. Like, I've been very high on him. There's a special unique quality to how that kid plays the game. Such a high IQ player, not afraid to get physical, offensively very gifted, defensively actually really impressive as well. I think he doesn't get enough notoriety for that. But you know as well as I do, Mossick, like him and Stenberg are, to me, like Stenberg is being talked about with potential number 1 ramifications. I think now with Toronto picking, it's probably going to be McKenna, but you know he's deserving of being in that conversation. And Bjork, I've been saying all year, has been highly underrated in the public scouting community. I think he's a top 5 selection, in my opinion. If you're a team like New York or, you know, any of these teams picking in the top 5, you should look and consider him. He's a real quality player, and you know that as well as I do. Moleman says DuPont can play for the next 3 years. Isn't that insane? Like, that's an insane statistic that he can still play for the next 3 years. And I would argue he probably, I mean, he should be there next year. He should be a top 4 defenseman, no question. And that, again, that's another elite quality player that you see that will be a really dynamic talent at the World Juniors. Now, this is a team around him work together and play well. It's up to them, right? All right. Draft is starting right now, so if those are showing McMillan clips, things like that.
It's scored! What a snipe! He looks standing down the left wing side, drives right to the pass. He's got a man in front, a shot, and he scores!
Let's see some of these kids have their dreams, man. Like this is what it's all about, right? Having these kids have their opportunity to kind of do more and be more, and
Well, the 2026 WHL prospect.
air rates.
Hello and welcome to the 2026 WHL Prospects Draft on Victory Plus. After a long season of early mornings,
Little Punk says, where do you watch? It's on Victory Plus, guys. All you gotta do is sign up for an account. It's completely free. You just go and sign up, put your email in, put a password in, and you can sign up and have it on there. You might have some audio here, but I'm not gonna put the video feed up. So yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, it's on Victory Plus. So Lovely Wizards, same thing. Victory Plus. Just look up victoryplus.com and you'll be able to sign up and watch it video-wise too. But I'm not going to put it up on the stream just for copyright reasons.
What goes into preparing for the WHL draft?
Yeah, just being at all these events throughout Western Canada, Western United States, and even a couple out east this year, getting to know the kids, giving presentations to the teams, talking about, what we offer.
70 on here. Appreciate those that are on here.
Really fun.
Sorensen was a big surprise. He will climb the draft. Well, we said that earlier in the year, right? We were talking about Voro Vetlanda. You gave me the history lesson on that, which was much appreciated. Sorensen to me is in a second round consideration for sure. Like he should be in the second or third round, no question in my eyes. I think he's a really quality player, somebody who's incredibly dynamic. Showed really well at the U18s. It is surprising that he's developed as quickly as he has. But kudos to him for what he's been able to do as a player, like just a really quality player. And yeah, I think he's worthy of being a real talent in the he deserves NHL consideration, right? And we were early on that. So if you want early things like that, we were talking about Viggo Sorensen back in October before anybody else was. Like, you want insights like that, follow the channel. And talk to guys like Mossick. Mossick knows what he's talking about. He's in the space. He knows. On the fly says, just joining in so far. Any surprises so far? So they're just starting on the fly. They haven't had picks go out yet. So I will let you guys know as it goes along here. But you can watch on Victory Plus. I'm sure you know that on the fly. But I just signed up for an account like 20 minutes ago while I was on stream and loaded up, and my laptop just died over here. So I got to figure out a way to get the feedback on. So I'm following. But I'll also have it on here too. So if you want to watch, cool. If not, no worries. Cool. And then, yeah, John Meals, Victory Plus is where you're going to watch for sure. On the fly, cheers, you bet, bud. I'll make sure that make sure you guys all have that situation and can watch where you need to. Again, Victory Plus is where you want to watch. That's where the streaming is at. I'm pulling it up on my phone right now. And we will hopefully get going here and see what's going on. Kelowna taking the local kid. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like I said, I think Jugnoth is a definite consideration. I don't know that, it just depends on whether Morrison really wants him to come there, right? Like, he's going to want commitment. Just depends on there. But I think, McMillan, Deneau, Jugnoth, all three are number one quality kids. So, like, couldn't go wrong with any of them. Moleman should trade. Kelowna should trade down if you want to take Jugnoth. I don't know if they necessarily do have to. Like, I will it be something that's criticized if he doesn't end up being the player that Deneau and McMillan does? Yeah, of course, it probably will. Is it fair to do that? I don't think it is. I think all three, like looking at current situation and where things are currently, there's no reason to think that there isn't a high quality player there that's played at a higher up level and has done really well for himself. So he deserves to have a lot of credit for what he's done. And I'm not going to pull punches on a 14, 15-year-old kid. Like, just not worth it. Also not fair to that kid either, or his family, or the people that support him. Yeah, so we're getting here on my feed. Sorry, my feed is just really struggling here. So I'm going to do my best to kind of get this going here. I'm going to have the video feed on this laptop, but I'm not going to play the audio. So if you want to watch, again, it's victoryplus.com. So like victory, the word plus.com, all lowercase. And you go in there, you log in, get a free account. It's very easy to get that set up and going. And yeah, you just kind of do your thing and you'll have the video feed up. So I'm going to just put the video feed up, at least for like on my end off screen, just so I can track along as we're going along. I'm not going to have the audio just because I don't want to interfere with like what's going on here. But yeah, we'll keep going and we'll see what situations and players are going to come out here. But I'm very excited to see who exactly will come out of this. All right. So, all right. And also, I want to answer questions. So that's why I'm not putting the audio on here, but you guys can watch appropriately. And the link, I'm actually going to throw the link in the chat right now for Victory Plus. That way people are aware. So that's the login where you guys can log in and kind of make your account there. So if you want to follow along, I'll be giving live reaction to each of these picks myself. You guys can watch the draft there. I'm sure a bunch of people will jump off. But if you like the content and want to stay on and talk to a guy like me, I'd love it. So feel free to do so. Whatever you feel is best is cool with me. But it'll be fun to see what happens here. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the content so far. Okay, here's a question. If we want to fill the time with Dub Commissioner's blabbers, if hypothetically Portland wanted to trade into the top 3, how much do you think it would cost to do that? That's a great question, Mo, man. I think, oh God, I don't know, a couple firsts. You know, if it's anything like the WHL trade deadline, you're probably throwing like 75 picks out there, it feels like, because it seems like every time there's a major trade, they just throw the gamut at it all, and that's how they land guys. So it's hard to assess value, but I think you're probably looking at a couple seconds, like a couple thirds even, to get into like top spots. You're burning probably 3 or 4 picks at least to get into the top 3, especially with the quality players that exist here. It should be fun though to see where exactly these guys go and what exactly happens. But if that would be my guess, would be like at least a minimum late second, couple seconds as well. You know, if you can package together a third, here's the pick. Madden Deneau goes first is what the thought was. So Madden Deneau commits to Kelowna. Obviously, Bruce Hamilton was really satisfied with what was said, and Madden goes number 1. So credit to him and his season. Just to talk about Madden Deneau in general, like 140, I think it was like 143 points in 34 games. This is a kid with incredible, eccentric and electric game, really quality player, just an absolute all-around great talent, good defensively, really brings in the offensive zone, already got a WHL ready shot, great skater. Offensive sense is really elite and high quality. Just a fun overall grouping, you know, just a fun overall grouping to watch within these 3. But this kid to me just had another step above the other 2 in McMillan and Jugnoth. I really think the world of this kid. I think he's a really good player. He'll come into the Western Hockey League this year and be probably a 50 to 60 point guy at a minimum to start next year. So Kelowna will be really happy to get him. And I think he'll be a piece they build around for years to come. But this is a really high-end player. I would stop short of calling him an exceptional talent, but I think he's a guy who will impact the Western Hockey League for a few years and be an excellent, excellent player and likely a top 5 selection in this draft year in the NHL draft. So, like, I think he's got really high-end potential, borderline star quality player, and somebody who I think Kelowna will build upon for years to come. So I like that selection there by Kelowna. I think with Vancouver here, they're probably going to go Parker McMillan. We'll have to see. Again, I have the feed up, but I'm not going to ruin or spoil anything for those that don't. Clearly, they're excited about the grouping here. And, you know, they're going to have – they just had the Memorial Cup they're going to have the Memorial Cup here pretty soon. Cool city to be into. I think Kelowna is a really good development opportunity for most kids. And I have no issue developing Kelowna myself if I were the same age, that's for sure. Despite the fact it's many moons away from where I currently live. So And for the record, like all my viewings are video viewing. I've not caught any of these kids in person, so I don't want to claim that I've seen the kid live. Everything I've watched has been video, partially because of I don't live in the region. But so there's probably a lapse in things I'm seeing, but overall, I feel like I have a pretty good grip on the talent that's available. Yeah, so 64 in here. Appreciate those that have been on and watching. Again, if you're new to the channel, if you haven't done so, feel free to subscribe. Love to have this grouping grow a little bit more. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers by the end. So if you enjoy the content, you like what's going on here, would appreciate a follow and letting me know what you think and feel. Don't be a stranger. No questions is a stupid question. Just feel free to answer whatever you think is best, and I'll answer what I think I can answer. So yeah, I think here now 2 is going to be a decision where I think McMillan's going to go here at 2. Hopefully he does, and we'll just have to see what happens here. All right. We're just waiting. We're waiting. I also wonder here if it's taking a little bit. I'm wondering if a trade's happening. You guys can let me know if you hear anything different, but there could be a real potential grouping of things going on right now. So we'll have to see. But I think there's what's the group think? I got to think everybody's thinking McMillan here. I just think he'll probably. I think he's. I'm trying to remember. He's from. Why am I blanking? What city Parker McMillan's from? Also a friend of the pod as well. He's from Vancouver, so they're gonna take the local boy, right? Like that's the thought. So it'll probably go, McMillan, and then maybe Jugnoff goes at 3. Or maybe they shock the world and take Vickers, or maybe they go out and do something even crazier. But I'm inclined to think McMillan's the pick here. We'll just have to see what happens. All right. Keep rolling along here as we're plugging through here on a Wednesday night. Hopefully the group isn't losing their mind here. And hopefully there's not – I have to think there's a trade going on for this to be the way it is right now. I'm just very curious to see what – Log Puller says Jacob Gaska. What's your point, bud? Is this somebody you want me to talk about? Oh, wow, moved up. Okay. Interesting stuff here. So they must want McMillan. That's got to be what this is. That's got to be what this is. It's got to be McMillan here. And honestly, I'm sure he'll enjoy that. It's crazy that if Vancouver might have switched here, which, hey, you know what? It is what it is, right? Like they clearly wanted the player, and we just have to see where it goes here. But it's I think McMillan's the selection. Just waiting for the powers to be to make it. Right. Man, this is going slow. This is going slow. We'll have to see what happens here, but this is interesting to say the least. Keep plugging along here. 68 though. Appreciate those that have been on here. Obviously the YouTube crowd is showing up. Appreciate those that are new here, and hopefully you enjoy the content and want to subscribe. I'll be doing more Western Hockey League stuff as we go along here. We're up to 325, so appreciate those that have subscribed and been on here. You know, I do a lot of junior hockey content, a lot of NHL draft content. If that's your speed and you really enjoy it, please subscribe and contribute to the chat. Appreciate those that are on here. I love talking hockey, and this is my life. Love it. Can't complain at all a day when I talk hockey. So if you are feeling the same, or you feel like you want to hear from somebody that seems to know a lot in space, do yourself a favor, subscribe, and I'll be having more content coming your way. All right. Let's see what's popping. It's got, like, what is taking so long? My God. He said, yeah, what's the price, Mo, man? If you could post that in here. I haven't caught the price yet. Wow, huge price to pay to move up one spot. My other laptop died. I had poor planning here, so I don't have the audio. But yeah, let me know what happened here with the trade itself. I'm gonna look right now myself. So they got first in 2030, second in 27 and 28, and of course a third overall pick. Hey, did I not just say 2 firsts and 2 seconds to move up? That is a big price to move up one spot, but clearly they feel good about Parker. Parker as a kid is a real power forward frame. He's listed there at 6'3", 190. He is definitely a modern power forward, but he's got elite skill as well. Great skater. Great goal scorer as well. Dominated the CSSHL U15 circuit. He is clearly in a class of himself of being a really high-end talent. The dad follows along too, so congrats to Paul if you're watching this. Congrats to Parker and the family. Very deserving of being a really high-end player, and thanks for following along through the year too. Hopefully you don't lose my number basically if you're following along. It'll be fun to track Parker's career, and hopefully he has the career he wants. And so hopefully him and Madden are real successful in the Western Hockey League. Let's see here. So on a log poller, you mentioned Jacob Gaska. I just did a quick look on him. I'll be honest, he's not a first-round talent, but he might be a guy that finds himself playing at Fairmont Prep. It's a pretty good program. He might find himself maybe selected in the later rounds, but admittedly not a first-round talent. Wow, huge price to pay up to move one spot for sure. That is a big price. Like, that's first in 2030, second in 27 and 28, and the third overall. Makes the Pats Pew deal look mild. I guess inflation even affects junior hockey trades. So does the trade deadline, man. Like I said, if one of these guys, like if Madden or Parker ends up getting traded in a couple years, it might be 20 picks to get him back. Like, it's the prices are just insane in the Western Hockey League. But it's obviously for whatever reason, that's just the way things go. Michael Bublé is cooking with that return. Yeah, he probably is. He's probably really excited about all those picks coming back. Now it's interesting to see what Vancouver does here, because is Jugnoth still the play? Like, I seem to think he would be. But we'll have to see. I don't know. I mean, Vickers might be a move here too. There's a potential opportunity for him to move up here. They go third and fourth here, so maybe the picks are Jugnoth and Vickers. That would be my guess. I've said that all along too. So like, there's a possibility, but like so far the board's gone exactly like how I thought it would. So we'll have to just see what happens here. But I like what's happened so far, and I think everybody's pretty happy with the fit. Yeah, let's keep cooking around. 78 on here. Again, if you're new to the channel, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I'm going to roll on here through at least the first round, and then obviously it ends after the first round tonight. I'll put my best available out tomorrow or later tonight of guys that will be the best available for rounds 2 through 15. And then if you're following along, also, like if you follow me on YouTube, great. I also have an X feed. So if you want to follow me on there, it's Hidden Hockey Podcast on Twitter or X. I've been putting out a lot of tweets as well. So feel free to follow me on there too. I'm getting close to 200 on there, and we appreciate those for that follow on here to follow along on there as well. Yeah, keeping rolling here though. 81 strong. This is awesome. It's the biggest stream I've had in a minute. So it's great to see. Hopefully some new people that want to follow along and be a part of the Hidden Hockey grouping of people. Eli Vickers, the third pick here. So they went ahead and took Vickers. Obviously, they had him pretty high on their board. Now, does Jugnoth go at 4? I'm inclined to think he is. We'll have to see, though. But Vickers, to me, was clearing away the best defenseman. Jevan Morrison was a pretty close comparable, and he'll probably go in the next, 5 or 6 picks. But with Vickers, you get an elite power play quarterback. You get somebody who's an incredible breakout pass as well. Very gifted offensively. Brings a lot to the table. I just really like what he brings overall. He's a clear modern defenseman, somebody who I think could be a number 1 defenseman very early on, and somebody who I have a ton of time for. And I know McMillan and Vickers, being both from Surrey, BC, I mean, they've played on teams growing up for a while now, so obviously the family's got to be ecstatic to see them go 2-3. But really quality player as well, somebody who deserves all the stars that he's given this year and years prior. And I think he'll be a real difference maker, and obviously a pretty solid replacement for Ryan Lynn. Ryan Lynn was a force for them in Vancouver, and to be able to plug and play and put Eli Vickers in starting next year is that's a hell of a way to replace Ryan Lynn. So he'll have a pretty immediate impact, I think, for Vancouver next year. So yeah, Vancouver now up again. Is this the move here, Jugnoth, or do we start to see guys go off of consensus? There's a real possibility of that. We'll just have to see where exactly things go. I mean, do they go ahead and maybe go a little different than what people are expecting and go Owen Moulton here? That could be a potential move. Vancouver has proven to produce a lot of really good elite talent, so it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to see that. But we'll have to see where guys go here and where exactly boards lie, because, Jugnoth to me would be the pick I would make, but I also understand that Owen Moulton is a real quality prospect too, and if they wanted to go American, they could certainly do so. Those two seem to be the ones I would think would be picked here, so we'll have to see. Moleman says Vancouver is going to be in 2-3 years what Prince Albert is now. I mean, they could even be better. I mean, it just depends on what comes in and how guys develop, right? So I'll just have to see. All right. All right, let's keep going here. Vancouver, man, this draft is going slow. I mean, last year went slow too, so maybe it's something I should have anticipated. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens here. All right, let's keep going here. All right. And that had Scott on the video feed smiling because he knows he's got 2 real quality players coming to his organization. He's had the pleasure of scouting all year. I'd be happy too if I knew I had 2 game-changing talents coming to my roster. Oh, man. All right. Well, hour 40 in. Hopefully everybody's not sick of my voice, but if you are, sorry, but not sorry at the same time because you're still on. We'll keep going here, and hopefully Vancouver makes a selection here. Like I said, I think it's going to be Jugnoth, or it could be Owen Moulton here. I mean, if they doubled down for defenseman, it would probably be Jevon Morrison, but I do think this is a little high for Jevon Morrison to be. So Jugnoth is the selection. That's a solid pick there. Jugnoth is a guy who's clearly played in a very advanced level at a young age. Being 14 years old and playing in the BCHL U18 level. He was a clear factor in that league. Definitely somebody who was one of the best forwards in that league, despite being 3 and 4 years younger than a lot of his compatriots and opponents. Jugnoth has a real professional element to his game, somebody who will adjust in the Western Hockey League in no time flat. Another guy who should be a pretty immediate impact guy. Like, to me, these 4 were the clear 4. It was just a matter of order. Yeah, we'll have to see what goes on here with the rest of the draft here. Now it starts to get a little more wonky. I think there will be some more different than consensus picks. At 5 here, Victoria is probably going to go with somebody Canadian. I don't know if they'll go American. We'll have to see, but yeah. So we'll see where it goes here. But I think if I were to say who I think is going to be picked, I mean, Antignani might be a guy, or Forstall here might go. Micah Montgomery is a guy I think could be appealing to a team like Victoria. All 3 of those guys I think could be selected. It's just, just have to see what happens here. But hopefully picks keep rolling along, and we'll have to see where it goes. Mosick says you have to crack some jokes to keep us entertained. Yeah, I guess so, right? Gotta do something to fill the time, right? So yeah. Moment said, are there any what jokes? I mean, I'd like to think I bring the jokes, but maybe I don't. Maybe I'm not as funny as I think I am. It'd be humbling if that's the case. And sometimes you got to check your ego at the door. But I don't know if you mean jokes or if you mean anything else. But we'll have to see. Are there any Thor Lifferton type guys in the top 20? Let me think on that moment. I would say no. Morrison's different. Harvey is a fringe top 20 guy, but I think he plays a different game than Lifferton does. I would say no. That's my initial thought, is no. And I know it's not the most complete answer I've given in this, but yeah, I think no. I made a lot of these guys in NHL 26, and most of the US 15 go Prince Albert. All right. Well, hey, Bonafide Noob, thank you for that insight. The AI and the algorithm is a hell of a beast, right? So even in the NHL games, they find their way to make some trends happen. We'll have to see if that actually comes to fruition, but that's pretty funny. Good stuff there. We'll keep going here as they go to commercial. What's going on here? Oh, okay. It was just a weird part of the feed I caught. Yeah, again, like I said, for those that are in here, appreciate those that are following along. Again, if we're supposed to root for guys, let me know. Like, if you're a family member that's got a kid that's potentially going to go in the first round, you have 84 other people in here that probably would root with you. We we will root for you. This is all about celebrating these kids, not tearing them down. So we're all excited all should be excited for these kids. And, they deserve all the kudos in the world for even getting to this level and the ability to being drafted. And let's keep that in mind as we talk about these kids too. All right, Victoria. Let's see what we got going. All right, you're plugging along here. I will say, I haven't caught the audio of this stream much, but they look like they've got a real professional presentation of this, which is really cool. Oh, it looks like a trade's being announced. Somebody's going to have to put for the somebody will have to put the return in for me. Who put it in last time? Was it Mole Man who put in the return last time? Somebody did. Yeah, Mole Man did. Yeah, put the return in here, Mole Man, just so I have a record of it since my audio took a crap on me, at least from the feed. The Mossick says I root for Chicken Little. Don't we all, right? Don't we all root for Chicken Little and the little guy? If you don't, I guess that's your prerogative. But it says my cousin Daniel Napu Fleck got to play with Kel Nicole and got to see Brandon a lot. Is it too soon to say for a kid at 13 to be a top 5 pick in the future? Bonafide noob. You're talking about something I totally agree with, right? He's a stud. I think Kale Nickel has, we throw the exceptional word out a lot. Kale Nickel is exceptional. That kid, him and Jack Kaiser are two unbelievable talents that are coming through the hockey pipeline. I think he's the next great Canadian is Kale Nickel. And I know I'm saying that about the 13-year-old, but anybody who watches this kid play, he is unbelievable. He played at the U18 level this year in Manitoba and did not look at any way, shape, or form out of it at all. Yeah, I think he could have gone 1 in this grouping. That's how talented I think he is. I think he is better than McMillan and Deneau. He is a special quality player, and you're right to bring him up. Your cousin, actually, I think I have him ranked in my rank. Let me double check here. Yeah, I think I have your cousin here at in the late second, early third. Good player. I remember watching him. He's a quality kid, good talent. Hopefully we're rooting for your cousin now in this group chat here. So we'll see what happens here. But if he goes in the first, that would be awesome. If not, rooting for him for tomorrow, and I'm sure you and your family would be stoked to have him picked. Because he deserves to be. And then Mole Man, second in 2026 and 2027 first, and third, the other seconds in 29. Got it. Okay, another high price to move up. 2 picks now gone. Wenatchee goes and moves up, and they take Jevin Morrison. I said Morrison was a possibility, and then Kenzo Gibson goes here at 6. Morrison, I had at 11 on my personal rank, and then I had Gibson at 8, so I wasn't far off on either one of them. But both guys are deserving of being in this quality of player. Not a huge difference between the two. Morrison, to me, was deserving of being in the top 10 in some way, shape, or form. I thought maybe a little later. I didn't think he'd be top 5, but hey, he's a good player nonetheless. Another guy, incredibly dynamic. A really good offensive player as well, but he's got a little bit of drive to him too. He's a little more tenacious than he lets on. Just a good overall quality player, definitely top pairing guy in the Western Hockey League, at least in the next year or two. Somebody to really track and look out. And then Kenzo Gibson is a kid who honestly really stood out for me, just really a bigger framed kid that brings a lot of physicality, but also brings a lot of skill. Good player that drives to the front of the net quite well. Good overall awareness out there, really high IQ thinker. Has a good shot too. Like nothing that like he's just a heavy shooter. He's not anybody that blows you away with like a quick shot, but he beats goalies pretty regularly with a good shot, good placement. Another player that I think deserved to be in that top 10 consideration. So he's he's worth the look, and I think Tri-City is going to really enjoy him as a player, and I think Morrison's going to be a really good fit in Wenatchee too, and a good breakout option. It's not a bad option to get Jevin Morrison to spring the puck up to Parker, and both of them will be able to be really good teammates and line mates that work well off each other. So that'll be a really awesome thing to watch as we watch these kids grow as Western Hockey League players. Rolling along here, and we're doing our best here to kind of get more stuff out and get more content going. All right. We're moving along as we're going. All right, 84 strong. Thanks for those that have been on here too. Really appreciate those that have stayed on and watched. Hopefully I'm entertaining, and see if I got any jokes here. Mossig, you can let me know if you're still on, if I'm funny. The joke, honestly, might be how long this draft is taking. It's taking a little bit longer than most would like, I feel. I know it's a hard decision for a lot of these because these kids are so young, but I do feel like there is a need for a timer to speed up the process here. All right, Victoria now. What are they going to do? My best ranked player available right now is Old Moulton at 5. Does Victoria go ahead and take a kid like Moulton this early? Hard to say. Antignani might be a guy, or Forrestal might be looked at as well. Forrestal is my 7. Antignani is my 6. Kenzo Gibson at 8 just went for me. Michael Montgomery is my 9. And then Ramazanov might be an option here. I have him at 10 on my personal rank, but we'll have to see what happens here. So Justin Bennett says the only place to watch is Victory Plus or what? Yeah, the only place to watch is on Victory Plus. So you just got to sign up for an account. It's free. I just did it, and it took me like 10 minutes. Unfortunately, I had another laptop off the side, but it died. So I just have a video feed. I don't have the audio. So I'm having people update me on the trades when I can get them. But yeah, it's on there. So if you're looking for that, that's where to go. Victoria might be moving this pick coming up. It's a possibility. That's a possibility for sure. So yeah, we'll see. Justin Bennett says, "Oh, sick. I thought there was a paywall." Yeah, there is not, man. One of the blessings is there is not a paywall. Hopefully you stick around though. We're a fun group, and appreciate those that are in here, and hopefully you're subscribed. And then cheers to you, bud. Yeah, so we'll see what's going on here, and I haven't read anything in terms of whether or not there's a trade coming here, but Mole Man might be on something because it's taking a little bit longer. All right, plugging along here. Let's see. Victoria now. Let's figure out what the hell is Connor Bedard in a car commercial on Victory Plus. And you Canadians have weird ads, man. It's a weird ad. So yeah, somebody mentioned the ad earlier, actually. Yeah, it's a little weird, but it is what it is. All right. Plugging along here. 75 strong. Again, if you're new to the channel, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I got a lot more content coming on the draft and WHL, OHL, QMJHL, USHL. I just mentioned the other day. I had some content there, so feel free to watch those if you haven't already, just to get insights on the other leagues too. Appreciate those that have been on here. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content and enjoy what I'm providing. And if you do, share around and let people know that you enjoy and want to be a part of this. So, and don't be shy to ask questions. If, no question is a stupid question, I'm free to ask. And it doesn't even have to be WHL draft related. It could be NHL. It could be NHL draft. It could be prospect related. It could be a whole ton of other things. We're just filling time here and enjoying what's going on. So don't be abashed. Don't be shy. Feel free to comment where you want to. And, let's just watch this all unfold together, and you have a friend that wants to watch with you. So appreciate those, again, like I said, that have been on and share the content. Hopefully you guys enjoy, what's going on here. So, we'll see where this thing is going. But Victoria Plus, or why did I say Victoria Plus? Sorry, Victory Plus. I just logged onto the screen and said that. That's a tough scene for me. Where's Wyatt Cullen going to go this year in the NHL draft? Hello, Elliot. First off, nice to first comment with you. Cullen's an interesting one, right? Came out on the radar late. Obviously, good bloodlines with Joey Cullen being his brother and Matt Cullen being his, I believe, his dad or uncle. I don't remember offhand right now. My mind's in WHL land. But Cullen, to me, is definitely going to be in that mid to late first round. He's not a top 10 pick in my view. I think he's more of a guy that fits into like 15 to 22. That's kind of where I'm thinking he's going to go. But it really, honestly, his U18s, he was one of the best American players at the U18s, in my view. I thought it really showcased himself well and made that tournament exactly what he needed it to improve his draft stock. A really good skater, obviously, a little bit more dynamic than I think than he was showing previously in the year. I think he's really grown in terms of becoming a real dynamic offensive talent. And there's a lot to like here with what's going on with Wyatt Cullen. I think he's on the rise, and for a good reason. And there's a real quality to what he brings to the table. I think he's going to be a guy who acclimates to the NHL at a pretty good pace here. And I believe he's committed to Minnesota. So it's a great program for him. And obviously probably Joey Cullen, who I think is his brother. He's a 2010. One of the best Americans 2010s in the country, him and Drew Daly. But Wyatt Cullen to me is probably 15 to 22. But stick around, Elliot. Appreciate you being on here. Check out my other content, and hopefully you're subscribed. Moleman says, why is Victory Plus so far behind? They just announced Gibson just now. Did they really? Wow. I wonder if something happened with their feed. That's crazy. That's like actually crazy that they're that far behind. I've like kind of been bouncing back and forth, so I haven't been fully as attentive as I thought it would be. But wow, that's they got to figure it out. NTDB talk. What's up, bud? When's Colton Nash out of Minnetonka Bantam AA going? He's a potential NTDP invite kid for next year. I think it depends on when the next wave is, bud. I think it really could be. I mean, I think a guy like Owen Moulton probably goes before. There's probably some other guys, like obviously Stevens, Dean Stevens. He'll probably be a guy that goes ahead of him too. If I were to guess, 4th or 5th round. But it also depends too on when these other guys go. So we'll have to see. But NTDP, thank you, bud. Appreciate you, and keep plugging along here, man. All right, let's see here. Victoria trades the pick for Cam Schmidt's going to Seattle. Oh, that's fascinating. Wow. Okay. Thanks for that, Mole Man. Is there any more on the return? Added in there if there is. That's a hell of a trade. That's going to have a lot of ramifications. Wyatt Jolly's just went here for Seattle. This is a little higher than I thought he'd go, but this is a kid who definitely deserved to be in the first round. I like the selection here. I think it is a little early for him personally. But he's a quality player. I think he'll be a guy who adjusts, and I think I had him. Where did I have him offhand? Apologize. This does not make for good podcast material, but frankly, I just want to give you the right info. Where did I have Jollies? 24. I had him in the late first, early second. So it's not crazy to have him go at 7 here. I think people valued him pretty highly, so it's not crazy surprising. But he was a real quality player. He's deserving of being a first rounder for sure. I just probably should have put him in my first round, knowing hindsight's 2020. But hey, is what it is, right? But yeah, NTDP, I don't know if I fully answered it, but yeah, 4th or 5th round is what I'm thinking, but we'll see. Might be earlier, might be later. You never know with these junior hockey drafts, as you know. How if I knew, I made a comment when U18s failed the medal that Canada should create an elite program hypothetical, but don't know how that bit came to fruition. You're saying like you think they should have their own version of the NTDP like the US does? I don't know if that would work in Canada. I'll be honest. I think there's such an established system with the Canadian Hockey League. Like that beast is so well funded, and clearly you see the interest here. Like I don't know that would work. I know in the 90s they had like a traveling Team Canada that went through and prepared for the Olympics and the Goodwill Games and stuff like that. But I just don't know if that makes sense. Like you can have they have a program of excellence already for a lot of the top 15 and 16-year-old kids. There's a possibility that they could do something, but like I just don't know that it works the way that it needs to. I think their biggest thing is identifying talent where they can and then working to put their development resources and pull them in the correct ways. And a lot of times I think these kids should find themselves in certain situations that make sense to them. But I think they're better off finding that in their respective junior leagues like they are now comparatively to then should they be bringing their Ivan Holenka team and making it a team that truly prepares for the U18s? I personally think so. I think they kind of throw away the Holenka tournament and they should really treat that more as a preparation tool. That's something that they've needed to do probably more often than they have in the past. You can't let ego get in the way of these decisions, and sometimes I think Canada has done that. All right, 8 here. Micah Montgomery, Kamloops. That seems like a really good fit. Montgomery is a real quality player as well. A bigger kid. I really like what he brings within 10 feet of the net. Like he is not afraid to go anywhere and battle in situations where he needs to score goals. He's really good at picking up rebounds and firing them in the right spot. But also has some real creativity too. He's not anybody that you would be confused with Pavel Datsyuk or anything like that, but he's a good overall offensive talent with good IQ. But that said, he's a bigger frame kid. He's already 6 foot at this age and 174 pounds. So, does he grow by the time he's 17 to 6'2" and 220? If he does, that's a pretty, with good offensive talent, that's going to be a first rounder in his draft year. So, I think he fits that Kamloops style of play really well. And can't complain there. I think it's a real quality pick, and he's in this gapping where you could go with him or Forstall or any of these guys, and they're all quality prospects. So Montgomery for me, I think, was actually 8. Let me double check. Or 9. I had Montgomery at 9, so I wasn't too far off. But we'll have to see how it goes here. But I really like the selection there by Kamloops. I think it's a real quality selection for sure. And you were right, Mo, man. I apologize. I was looking wrong. I knew he played for Seattle, but he's going to Victoria. Just wasn't thinking at the time. And then for a conditional 4th for some year nobody cares about. Yeah, that's how it always goes, right? Elliot says, you think Owen Ryan will be the first American pick? He dominated Michigan high school last season. I think it's going to be Moulton. I really do. But I think Owen Ryan, and that's another name I think might go ahead of Colton Nash to NTDB's point. I think Owen is probably the best American goalie that's eligible. I think he's one of the top 2011 goalies, along with Evan Ladd, who is a QMJHL guy but plays in Vermont. But Owen Ryan's a real quality player. He probably will be selected today, not today, but like probably round 2 or 3. But I'm inclined to think there's going to be at least an American 1 or 2 picked today, but we'll see how the trends go in this draft. So far, it looks like it's going to be less than I thought, but depends on the risk propensity of the team selecting. Nocturnal says Regina Pats are a joke. The organization is all rich kids. Their dads are all friends of the organization. That's why they're so bad if Bedard left. I can't claim to speculate on whether that's true or not, but Regina, yeah, it's a shame because you got Schultz and Pugh. Those guys are elite talents that deserve the credibility of being elite talents, and as long as you have those two, they're going to be a pretty good team overall. They just got to find what their next supplementary piece is. Molman makes a point here. Like, is it Forrestal? If Regina doesn't take Forrestal, Durkat should hold his head. It should be a slam dunk pick. Yeah, I mean, Forrestal could be one. Antignani might be a selection too, and I wouldn't disagree with that either. Ramazanov is a guy. And then honestly, if Regina really wanted to, they might be able to recruit Owen Moulton. I think that would make a lot of sense. I think the kid's a really elite talent. You couldn't really go wrong with any of those guys. They're all very similar talent levels. They're all very gifted offensive players. And if you want a guy to supplement Schultz and Pugh for next year, I think any of those guys could fill that role and be pretty good. So we will see where things go here, but we're doing our best here to kind of roll through and see. It looks like a pick went through Fletcher McDonald. Who the hell said that earlier? Somebody said Fletcher McDonald was the best goaltender, and I'll be darned, man. Wow, that's, I don't know. To me, that's a little rich for my blood, but he's a good player. I'm blown away there. Somebody did literally say that. Who said that earlier? Who mentioned it? Sorry, I'm looking through the comments. I'll get to the comments in a minute, but I wanted to see. There's a kid who said it. He probably pieced that out of here after that comment, didn't he? Little Pump. That was the kid who said it. Hey, man, you were right. I'm highlighting your comment here if I can find it. But hey, wow, that's crazy. OMG, wow. Yeah, I mean, hey, if that's their choice, that's their choice. I just think that's a rich position for Fletcher. Hopefully it proves me wrong. I don't want to speculate poorly on the kid. I mean, clearly he's skilled enough to be in this first round consideration. Clearly Regina thought that. But hey, he's definitely deserving of being a player. I know Fletcher loved that guy. Hey, there you go. Personal anecdote there. Good for him though, honestly. What an awesome situation to be a guy who maybe wasn't anticipated publicly to be a top 10 selection and then end up being a top 10 selection. That's a massive shock value thing, that very few people experience. So good for Fletcher. And like I said, I did not expect a goalie to go top 10. That's a pretty shocking development. The biggest shock in the draft so far for sure. But hey, we'll have to we'll have to see what happens here. Pontified says, don't see a goalie go until late first, early second. That was kind of where I was thinking too. I thought Gavin Craig would be the first off the board. That was kind of my initial thought. Elliot made a good point about Owen Ryan. I think Owen Ryan would have been a guy that would have been picked in the second or third round in terms of what my perception was before the draft. I have to be curious and see what happens here. Bro's dad bought Durkat a box of Pro V1s. Yeah, maybe. That's funny. Oh, man. All right. Why is this a surprise? Just wondering because I'm only familiar with the Minnesota prospects. I just think, I feel like we would have heard more about Fletcher McDonald like publicly as well. Like he's clearly a good goalie. Like looking at his stats, he was a quality player. Like there's no doubts about the skill. I just don't know that he in perception compared to what's available. Like to me, Gavin Craig was widely considered the top goalie eligible, at least from like Canada in general. Like Owen Ryan, I think, is right in that caliber of goalie too. But Fletcher, yeah, I mean, could he have been like the fifth or sixth best goalie available? Absolutely, he could have. I would argue that he probably was in that vein, but just was a shocking selection, I guess, compared to what was on the board and what existed there. So there's probably a few Regina fans that are upset, and that's just the way she goes sometimes. Moleman says Pat's ownership is the problem. It's not going to be Durkach or the players' families, etc. Yeah, I mean, the people that feel bad about the ownership with the Regina Pats have a clear narrative on what they think and feel about it. And, there's been reasons to think that I've heard that like ticket prices have gone up a lot. Anybody from Regina can confirm this and let me know if I'm talking the truth or if I'm just speculating. But from what I've read online, like it seems like a lot of people, like season ticket holders, are finding their tickets because Schultz and Pure are in town have doubled and tripled. Even when Bedard was here, it seemed like the same thing happened in Regina. So that's at least what I've read anecdotally. But like whether or not that's the truth, somebody in here can tell me if that's really the case or not. But it seems to be that their priorities are more about profit margins as opposed to like getting the best teams out there. So if I'm wrong, let me know, but like that's just the perception I read. So we'll see how things go here, but keep plugging along here as we're firing away chats. Let's see. All right. Looks like one pick here. Colin Stevenson went to Portland here at 10. So I had Colin on my rank. Let me see where I had him, though. I want to say I had him in the 30s. No, 29 is where I had him. So, I mean, he's a good player. I like the kid. I think he's a really solid prospect. Surprised that a Saskatchewan kid went as early as he did, but like he's a clearly good quality player. I thought he was one of the better Saskatchewan players available. So Portland must really value the player. Credit to him for being a top 10 selection and finishing this top 10 out. But hey, deserves kudos for that. He's a clear weapon. He's obviously very lean. He reminds me in high school, 5'11", 135. Clearly needs some muscle, a lot of protein powder over the summer, but clearly a good talent. I think I've had like one or two like half viewings of him, nothing that like I would consider like a crazy amount, but enough of a quality player that I felt like he deserved to be in the first round, or at least in that consideration. Did I see 10? No, but Portland generally knows what they're doing scouting wise, so I trust their judgment well over mine. Paul, if I knew, question if you know, I've seen Saskatchewan has AA, but other West provinces have AAA. Those that are more familiar can correct me, but everything I've understood with Saskatchewan minor hockey is that they just don't have AAA in general, and I think it's a population thing. I think for AAA programs, a lot of them tend to want to claim AAA when it's a bigger municipality. And with Saskatchewan being so diverse, I don't believe there is a AAA. They just stuck to AA, and the best kids play there and do that. And it's just the way they call it. I don't think it's anything more than that. But that's my understanding. People can let me know if I'm wrong, but that's what I've understood it to be. It's the hockey. And no, the hockey does not have less quality. It's just in name alone. Moleman confirms there is no AAA. That was my impression too. I'm glad somebody could confirm that for me. That was my thought as well. Jax Bubnick goes now here at 11 to Seattle. I didn't have Bubnick in my top 50. Now, granted, that could be an oversight on my part. I remember reading that he was a pretty good player with some good physicality. I think I've caught like glimpses of half viewings and things like that. So, he's somebody I think that deserves some good notoriety. I think he's a worthwhile guy. Maybe not in the first round. I wouldn't have seen that myself, but a good player nonetheless. And like I said, there's a ton of depth in this year's draft, and maybe somebody sees that he's got more high-end talent than most would think. And that's probably what led to the selection here. And Seattle is really bullish on him, apparently. So kudos to him, and best of luck to him in his career, obviously. Keep rolling along here. Again, like I said, if you're new and you want to know more, feel free to subscribe here, and we'll fire along here. Elliot says, you think that the more U.S. players will choose WHL over the USHL in the next few years? I think so. I think it also depends on where you're from. Like we saw this year in the USHL draft, Minnesota was like very, very heavily recruited by USHL scouts. It seemed like every third pick was from Minnesota. So I think their foothold in Minnesota will continue for the USHL. Now, whether or not, and I think partially part of that is because of the ability for these kids to still play high school hockey. The USAHL allows them to play high school hockey and then move on to a USAHL team after the fact. I think that definitely appeals to the Minnesota high school kid in that development situation, which is why I think there's been such a pathway there. But I do think like from places like California, Colorado, Texas, different countries that fit within that WHL's territory rights. I do think more of them will consider the Western Hockey League. One, for the quality of the league. Two, there's just seems like there's better development opportunities, and that's not a slouch to the USHL because they still have the opportunity to improve their development opportunities, and it seems like they're getting funding from the NHL to do so. And it really is. It's going to just be seen based on trends and how people evaluate their talent, right? So. I'm inclined to think, based on like what I've seen and what I've visualized within draft trends, that they probably will go more Western League. But again, every situation is unique, and it just really depends. Smaller populations, Saskatchewan, AAA, and yeah, that was kind of my point earlier, Crafty. I figured that was the case. So thanks for clarifying as well. This is all still new. If we see more Americans reliably reporting for 1+ seasons, then yeah, they absolutely will. If it's a reliable on-ramp to the NHL and pros. Oh, you're right, though. It's all still new. Like, I think there's still more to be seen, right? Like, there's so much more that's out there that could potentially happen. It just depends on, what happens and where things go from here. But, yeah, we'll just have to see, right? I think it's going to be a reliable on-ramp for a lot of these kids because you see guys like Bedard, McKenna, they've all developed out of here. The pathway is there, and it's going to be something that's established for a while, especially because the funding and the success for these leagues are supplemented by National Hockey League development fees. And for those that don't know, like kids who get drafted out of certain junior teams, the reason why the CHL wants to keep these kids is because they get cash when they get drafted. So they're going to want to push to have these kids drafted in their organizations so they get more funding. Like that's just part and parcel with the development game, right? So that's the fear of losing these kids at 19, 20 years old to the NCAA is if a kid doesn't get drafted by the time they're 18, they want to be protective of that for development right fees. So that's something that's not really talked about media-wise, but it's a real concern amongst these teams, and that's why so many teams are so based in the commitment aspect of it. USHL has made an announcement this season. They're working with the USHL to create a better pipeline. Yeah, apparently there's more funding coming from USA Hockey and the NHL in a partnership. They had mentioned yesterday during the USHL draft, the entry draft and the futures draft the day before that they're looking to like standardize the player experience. So they're going to offer very similar resources and facilities across the board for kids to develop in, which honestly is a great thing for the USHL and a great thing that they have in the league. I think there's a real solid element to that and a real smart decision by the USHL. The thing that I think is a concerning element to it, though, is that the rumor that there is apparently the ask of if you leave the USHL prior to your commitment, that you have to give back development fees. And I think that's something that's something we're going to have to watch going forward, because if that's really the case, you're going to have a lot less kids committing to the USHL. One, because they don't want to get burned for money, but two, development isn't something you usually give back. It's something that's just given, and you either cultivate that talent or you just never develop. So I think it's a sunk cost that the USHL has to reconcile and realize is a real thing. So really just depends on what you see and where you go from there. But yeah, it's a real concern. And then they want to compete like the Memorial Cup. Well, of course they do, right? Like if they don't, they will die. Like that's the USHL is dependent on the fact they want to match what the Canadian Hockey League brings. And they don't want to lose out on those kids that are 16, 18 years of age. That's just the way it is. Mole Man says, we may just continue to see American kids reporting to the lucky, wealthy franchises being slotted into the place of the 17-year-old All-Stars and pulled to the NCAA. Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I guess it just depends on, like I said, all these situations are incredibly unique. So, and they're all nuanced. So every situation for each kid has its own underlying characteristics and thoughts, right? There are so many different things to consider and look at that you have to really look at each thing comparatively, right? And like the NIL money is real in the NCAA, right? Like some of these kids, like Gavin McKenna, got paid $750,000 to play for Penn State. Like, you know, is the Western Hockey League? Are they bringing an American kid over and say, "Here's $200,000, play for us"? That's probably a possibility. You know, that landscape has been opened up quite a bit. So it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if Hurlburt got paid, or any of these elite hockey players that come over from the US and move to these Canadian hockey leagues. There's a possibility that there's some payment there, even more so than what they get in their stipends. But, you know, that's a real possibility too. It's something that still has to be figured out, but it's not a crazy theory there, Mo Man. And then Pontified agrees. I mean, that's something that's definitely been thought of as well. We got another trade, I'm assuming. Is that what's going on? It's real slow here, so I'm assuming there's something to do with that here. We're almost halfway through right now, right? We're 12 more picks in the first round, so we'll see where things go. 46 of you still on here, so thanks for those that have joined on, and hopefully you guys are subscribed and, you know, becoming more involved here. Again, it's really cool to see how many people have been on here. Hopefully we have more of these streams as they come along here, but it's been great to see everybody on here. We're up to 330, which is so awesome. Really appreciate everybody who's subscribed. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content, and I just try to give my best foot in terms of what I know and what I don't know about hockey. So there's a lot more that I've forgotten than what I remember. So I appreciate those that even care about my opinion. It's nap time for the Boomer Scouts. Yeah, they got the young kids taking over, right? Here's my list, and pick them for me. You pick towards the list, though. And then Elliot says, my question came from the fact that I felt like a decent amount of players signed players to WHL teams before the USHL draft, like Brody Johnson, Henry Meyer, and Parker Colmer. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the case, right? Like Parker Colmer was drafted, I think he was like the 6th pick last year for Spokane. Meyer, I forgot where he was drafted, but I know he was a first rounder too in the USHL or the US prospects draft they did last year. Now they've combined it all, so it doesn't really matter now. But yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to think that it's just the competitive nature of it all. Like the OHL is going to face the same thing. The Q is going to face the same thing. Like, you know, it was a big win for the USHL to get Logan Cotter, which he's a really good defenseman that played prep school in the Northeast. But that was a kid who could have been a top 10 QMJHL prospect, right? Like he could have been a real dynamite player to look at. And, we'll just see where things go. Spokane went and made their pick here. Brody Antignani gets the selection here for Spokane. This is a kid who, again, a really elusive player, somebody who I think has a lot of good things going on. And, a lot to like here with him. He's somebody who I think is one of the more offensively gifted guys in the draft. I do think it's crazy that Forrestal right now is not in the top 10. I'm kind of shocked by that, actually. It's a really interesting development that's coming along here. But right now, my best available would be Moulton at 5, Forrestal now at 7, Ramazanov at 10, Dufour at 11. Those are my 4 right now that I have in terms of guys that weren't selected yet. But Antignani, this is a good slot for him here at 12. He's definitely deserving of being in this top 15 consideration here. I thought he was a really elite talent through the year and was a clear leader on that Calgary Edge team. So I'm going to take a quick second. I just got to go to the bathroom. I'm going to mute real quick, and I'll be right back. Give me like 2 minutes. Don't leave. Throw your questions off the side. I'll answer them in a minute, and I'll catch up with the draft in a few seconds. But got to hit the restroom, and I'll be right back. All right, I am back. Thanks for staying on. I just refresh up and get some refreshments here as we're dwindling along here. Just fire up here. Just want to charge my phone. Looks like another pick came through. Let's check out who was picked. Wyatt Bitts. Be honest, not on my radar for a guy who I thought would have been picked, but maybe there's something I don't know. So I don't really have a book on him, unfortunately. So I'm not sure. I haven't seen a guy. I haven't heard of him actually even. Doesn't mean he's not quality or anything like that. I just may have missed him in my viewings. Yeah, so that's all I got to say about that, I guess. Forrestal finally goes here to Lethbridge. That's a great selection there. And you get the extra year because he's a late born 2011, so you're going to get him going in the draft in 2030. That's a pretty good selection there for Lethbridge. I think he was better than being at 14. I had him personally ranked at 7, I want to say. Yeah, I had Forrestal at 7, so I thought a really good value pick there. He deserves a lot of credit for that. And Lethbridge, they're building a decent team. They're a team to watch. I feel like they're finding their way. They're going to be I know it's a hard place to play just because they never seem to find success. But there's some promise there. I would not sleep on Lethbridge going into the Western Hockey League season next year. I don't know if they're going to be like an uber contender or anything, but they're going to be a pretty good team. Let's see here. What stands out about Moulton's game? I just think the kid, like when the going gets tough, he just scores. Like he just has this like extra gene that like the good players have when they're younger. When Shaq relied on him to get a goal in a big game, he figured it out. Like he just made things happen and produced in really clutch moments. That was something that was an immediate draw for me because and probably got 4 or 5 viewings at least of him, and then some like highlight stuff that you're gonna kind of get half the story on. But every time I watched him, like in a legit game, when the going got tough, he stepped up. And to me, that's a real elite quality that he possesses. And it's just cool to see that that's the case. And I just think there's just that element that he has comparatively to other 2011s that I think just separates him from the rest. So that's my thought there, Elliot. Lethbridge might get a top player after all, despite mismanagement of their draft picks. Hey, sometimes it happens like that, right? That's just the way sometimes it goes. So credit to them for being good stewards and still doing their due diligence. So like I said, credit to them for that. I am sorry, one sec. I just gotta figure something out here. Sorry. Get my ugly mug in there. I'm not trying to, but it's just kind of happening, so I apologize there. All right. I might have to run and grab something. I'll be right back, okay? Sorry, y'all. All right, fiance got home, so duty called there. I had to approach.
Open the RSVPs.
Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, we'll keep firing along here. Just had to acknowledge the fiance. That's all I had to do. So she's letting me do this, so that's a blessing in disguise there. All right, let's get firing up here with the rest of these picks here. Let's check it out. We're getting close to the end of the first round here. Let's see. Saskatoon still isn't picked, eh? Is Victory Plus still behind, by the way? I meant to ask that. I was curious to see if they were still really behind or not. All right, Saskatoon here. My best available for the guys that are available in this? Obviously, I still think Owen Moulton should be selected here. I'm inclined to think that my next best after that's Ramazanov at 10, Dufour at 11. And then the last guy here I'll mention is Easton Pitts. I have him at 12. I think he'll be, those are, at least in terms of my comparative rank. We'll see how things go here. But again, if you're new to the channel, I haven't pimped this out in probably a half hour, but if you enjoy the content, you enjoy hearing, I know you probably enjoyed the silence, but if you enjoy hearing a guy talk about prospects and lean in on these guys and talk about in depth a lot of these young future talents, do yourself a favor. Please subscribe. Please be involved in the content, be involved in the chat, and also just share this content out to where you think it fits best. Appreciate growing this out, and we've already got a lot of subscribers tonight, and it's awesome to see, and want to grow this thing out more. So do yourself a favor, please subscribe, please get involved with the content, and I'll be putting out a lot more content as the years come along, and get your resources from a local hockey nerd in me. So with that, we'll go back to the draft now after I had my soft plug. Tegan Dernisky now selected, teammate of Parker McMillan's, who led the league in the CSSHL U15 in scoring, had 96 points. Bit of a supplementary piece to Parker. Parker really drove the offense, but he was a good complementary piece to that top line for Yale Hockey Academy. In his own right, he was a guy who could score on his own as well. He did produce in instances where Parker wasn't out there, but those two started off like a house of fire. I think had 35 points in their first 7 or 8 games to start the year. Continue to do so and be the most lethal duo in the CSSHL, and he's clearly earned himself a first-round selection, and that's a credit to what he's been able to do even in his own volition and his own talent level. Credit goes to him and what he's been able to do for Yale. And, he's a guy who I'm curious to see what he's like in his own situation. I think he's a guy who is the question with him would be, can he carry his own line in the Western Hockey League? That's still to be determined. I think he's a quality player, though, somebody who definitely deserves some more notoriety. And, he's earned it with this season this year. He deserved to have a first-round selection, and credit goes to him for producing as much as he did and being such an impactful player for Yale and in that league in general. All right, Spokane up now. This is where I can see an American selected. I think, maybe an Owen Ryan, a Owen Moulton. Maybe they even go off the board here and take Easton Scott. There's a few different options here that could be available to them. I just think they might be the team that takes the risk and goes American. And I would think Owen Moulton's probably better than at least half the kids selected so far. So I think that's the move. Do they go goaltender now that now that a goalie was picked at 9? Maybe they do. I don't know. Is this a spot where Craig goes? Is this a spot where Owen Ryan goes? We'll have to find out. But my lean right now is Moulton, but we will see. So, and like I said, Moulton, I think if he was Canadian, he'd probably he probably would have been after the top 4. That's probably where we would have slotted, but we'll see what happens here. And I would be really shocked if by the end of this there's no Canadian or no Americans selected here in the first round. I would be very shocked by that, but right now it looks like there's a distinct possibility that it could happen. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll keep plugging along here. Like I said, it'll be curious to see what happens here for sure. And we're kind of waiting, as clearly nothing's going on right now. Whether or not it's a trade or what's going on, we'll have to see. Jack Arnold goes here. Not the first American I would have expected. That's crazy. I was right in being that it would be an American, but Jack Arnold was not in my radar to be selected in the first. It's amazing how these people evaluate, right? Like there's just such a difference in the thought and philosophy there. I got, how many Americans do I have? I got like 7 or 8 Americans here that I thought would have gone ahead of this kid, but it doesn't mean that he's not a quality talent. I actually really like the kid's game overall. I think he's a solid player. Moleman says never trust a guy with 2 first names. I mean, my name's Matt Gordon, dude. That's 2 first names. Why would you call me out like that? That's a tough scene, Moleman. You called me out by not meaning to, but that being said, Arnold's a good player. He's quality. So Moleman says, "Oh shit." No, all good, man. I'm just messing with you. Mossy told me to bring the jokes. I brought the jokes. That's what I'm here for. Yeah. Anyway, it's we'll see here now. We got Red Deer coming up. Skills Not Luck says go V's go. Man, good for Penticton, by the way. Being an expansion team and doing what they've been able to do, like they're a hell of a group. And like I remember, I mean, I've watched BCHL games with them. That's an organization that really appreciates this hockey. Very easy to root for. They were clearly dominant in the BCHL. Awesome to see. You know, I think they deserve all the credit in the world. Fred Harbinson's been an excellent GM for them. They're a fun group to watch, and they deserve a lot of their kudos they're getting. Skills Not Luck says, I know they're a fucking powerhouse. They are indeed. I know this year might not be as good, but I believe in them. I mean, the kid to watch is this Roberts Naudines that's coming over next year for Penticton. I will tell you right now, hear me out here very early on this. I think that kid's going to be your best player next year, and I think he will go in the top 20 of the 27 draft. You're going to hear that here first. But I also encourage you to follow along and see if I'm right and subscribe. But yeah, I think there's a hell of a chance there. So he said, if you ever get a chance to go to Penticton, watch one of the games in real. Fans are insane. It sounds like it from when I watch on Flow Hockey. And their barn is beautiful. I love what they have going there. Like they got a really quality setup. You know, it's a fun. It looks like a fun place to go, and their rink is beautiful. And they do a great job on the production side too. Like, I'm going to stop waxing poetic about Penticton, but Skills Not Luck is not wrong. It's a real quality organization. They've done a great job there overall with developing talent over the years, and they're a legendary program. They were a hidden secret for far too long. We're getting a new Jumbotron this year. Really? I mean, that thing is nice already. You already have to get a new one? I thought your guys' Jumbotron was cool in the first place. But hey, shit, that's cool. I mean, that's really cool. I thought your guys' was not bad at all. All right, let's keep rolling here. All right, Red Deer. Red Deer might be taking one of the kids from the Rebels. Let's see who would be a guy that would fit. Maybe the only guy I have in my rank here for Red Deer would be Finn Visser, but I think it's a little early to take him right now. Let me look at their roster. Actually, I want to double check a few things because I might have missed a few guys. Obviously Jollies isn't on there. Morrison already went. I think Visser would be early here, so maybe they go ahead and do somebody different, but we'll have to see. For a junior team at first, we had a great arena. You guys do have a great arena. There's certainly worse. I think, like I said, I'm very complimentary of them because I think they do a really good job and they've recruited well too. It's an exciting time to be a V's fan. Red Deer tends to draft the same type of Sutter-esque player. Yeah, they do, right? They got their type. I'm just trying to think of who that is. This is not a Sutter type player they just took though. Danny Ramazanoff. So this kid, he's an interesting situation here. So Ramazanoff, I had him at 10. Ramazanoff is a Kazakh Canadian dual national, but he's played enough in Alberta in general that he's eligible for the draft here. And like you said here, never mind, literally the opposite of a Sutter player. But Ramazanoff's a hell of a player. That he's going to be a dynamite player for them in Red Deer. Really slick player in terms of elusiveness, great hands, smart overall. Potential here. I think there's a real solid group here that he'll have in Red Deer, and I think he's going to complement well with some of the talent they already have. I don't know if Red Deer is going to be I wouldn't put him as a championship contender next year, but they got a good group. Obviously I'm looking at the roster right now. Like Varga will return. Sopiars is a quietly underrated player in my view. Kuzma and Hamilton are pretty good 08s. Yellow Aga, I think, is a kid who's a tremendous player. I think there's some good pro upside there. They're going to probably – and they got some kids they drafted. Let me look at what they drafted last year. Oh, yeah, Wolitsky. He's a really dynamite player. I like him a lot. They're doing fine. They're going to have enough people here. I don't know if they're going to be like more than a middling team, but they're going to be a competitive team for sure. No, the Jumbotron is 30 years old. It turns on and off a lot, so we need a new one. Our bond is great. I'm happy Fine got up a league. We were for sure slept on, just showing how good we are. Yeah, you guys were good enough to get Eli McCamey really early, that was cool in itself. Really, that was shocking that it's 30 years old. I'm naive here. I've never been there publicly, so I'm talking from a video feed, but turn on and off on a lot. Interesting. Okay. I'm assuming you're from there, which is why you have all the insight. So that's appreciated. Good to know, though. Skills, subscribe, bud. If you're not already, let me know if you are, but subscribe. I'd like to hear more about Penticton, and you can give me more info from an area I'm not familiar with. Rylan Edwards goes here for Brandon. Another shorter guy. They've drafted shorter before. Obviously, Jackson Jacobson's a guy who will return next year and be a key figure. I had Rylan at 20, so it's not crazy to think he would have been a top 20 selection. I really like that move there for Brandon. It's just interesting because you have – sorry, I didn't mean to click on their skills, but it's an interesting group there in Brandon. You're going to have Jackson Jacobson's going to be a real leader for them. I would expect to be a top 10 scorer in the WHL next year. And you had a guy like, Rylan Edwards here. They're going to have more opportunity to have some really good players. I want to just double check the roster real quick because I'm definitely missing some players in Brandon. And Nickel, I think, still there, right? or no, I'm thinking Cal Nickel, or I'm thinking not Cal Nickel, but whatever. Oh, Ruzicka, yeah, he'll return as a starter next year. Cruz Jim's a hell of a player. Turco does a good job too. Mahler was good. Prob Bethal, he's a good player too. Ellingson's a good player. Gavin might come back as an overager. Sirkin has shown really well. He was really good this year and probably is likely a high-end 27 pick. There's a good group there too. Mickey, what's going on, bud? In your opinion, can you rank the different leagues from top to bottom? Which one is best and why? I'm assuming you mean junior leagues, right, Mickey? Clarify that for me in the comment and I'll answer. If that's what you mean, let me know. But I think that's what you mean. I just don't want to assume that's what you mean, though. So just clarify that and let me know, and I'll answer it. All right, 70 strong, guys. This is awesome. Again, thank you guys so much for following along. Mickey's been a long-time follower. He can tell you and spread the gospel of the fun we have here on the channel. So if you want to be a part of a bunch of people that all like to learn hockey and be a part of this grouping in general, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I'm pretty easy going. I ask, you guys ask a lot of good questions and I love answering them. So yeah, you said junior. Okay. Yeah, I would say right now I would go Western League being the top, OHL being the second, but they're like 1A, 1B. They're pretty close. The Q right now is a distant third. And I think it's just because of where Hockey Quebec is developed, guys. A lot of those kids are moving on to the USHL. I would put the Q in the USHL right now on kind of the same plane, but it seems like the Q is trending up and the USHL is trending down. Out of the four there, those are the top four. Then there's a bit of a gap. I would put the NAHL, the BCHL, and the AJHL all on the same plane along with the OJHL. That's when you get into like tier 1 or tier 2 junior A. And then it gets like there's just a bunch of other leagues after that. It gets like way in the weeds. And I would argue that a lot of junior hockey after this level has to be kind of thinned out because you're just kind of looking for cash grabs. Especially now with the NCAA being the way it is, you need probably less junior leagues than what's being sustained right now. So I would go, my order, Mickey, would be Western and I would put Western just slightly ahead of the Ontario Hockey, but it's like uber close. QMJHL being that third grouping afterwards, USHL being fourth. You drop down NAHL, BCHL, AJHL, and OJHL would all be kind of like all in the same plane. And then after that, in like prep school, I would put in that vein too, like US prep. After that, it's hard to really identify talent being anywhere in like the NHL realm. So it, yeah. So, cool. All right. Let's see. Mickey Moonrock here. I'm not familiar with the OHL, WHL. Is it like the NCAA where they can earn NIL type money? So yeah, Mickey, I'll go to brass tacks with you guys. And obviously there's more people like Mickey. So Mickey, thanks for asking the question. I know I get a little nerdy, so feel free to call me out when I'm nerdy, but yeah, I think there's the opportunity, I think more so now with the development landscape for these kids to make money. So prior to all this, Mickey, before the changes a couple years ago with like the NCAA and everything, it was two silos. You had the NCAA was where kids went to kind of grow their physical strength, grow their ability to like get stronger, get more physical. You played a more mature game. You didn't have junior habits that showed up in the college ranks. And those kids tended to go and be more pro ready. And then the OHL and the QMJHL and the WHL, the major junior in general, and the USHL, those leagues were more stepping stones. Like the USHL was a stepping stone directly to the NCAA. It was the sole way to get into the NCAA. And then CHL operated as its own entity where all these kids would come in, clearly develop, and then move on to either the pro ranks or National Hockey League. Now we're in a situation now where they merge together. The best of both worlds come together. There's more development opportunity for kids involved across the world. and they've opened their borders quite substantially over the last 10 years, both in youth hockey and across the board. And that's led to more NIL type money that comes over. Now, the issue that came across with Gavin McKenna is that coming to the NCAA and having the NIL money isn't as easy as just coming over and becoming a student. In the US, you can make money, no issue whatsoever. Like, that's not the issue. When you come over as an international student, though, you are on a student visa, which then limits what you can make financially. So there's a whole bunch of layers with that. I could probably make a video on the legalities of that. And that might be something I do going into the summer. Maybe another video idea, Mickey. So you gave me a good one there. But that's typically how it works. So all the leagues obviously supplement to the NHL. It's in the NHL's best interest to make those leagues sustainable and viable. And then they go from there to then make future NHLers. And then that money, which a lot of people don't know this, but that money that those players make at those respective programs then get paid out by the NHL in development fees. And so that's why these teams are so sensitive about kids 16 to 19 years of age, because they don't want to miss out on that money. You invest a lot of time in these kids to not get anything returned back on you is something that is a reasonable concern for these junior clubs, because it is something they run into. So that's, hopefully that wasn't too complicated, Mickey. If it is, I'll dumb it down more, but hopefully that answered your question. So yeah. Malik Giroux says, discovered you with your U18 World video. You look like a guy you know you're talking about and open for debate. Fun to see someone doing this just for the love of the game. Hey, man, that's the biggest compliment you can pay me, and it's why I do this stuff. So thanks, Malik. Really appreciate it. Hopefully you're subscribed, and don't be a stranger, man. That really humbles me. That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. Skills and Outlook says, OHA is a great prep place for players for sure. I'm assuming you're talking about Ontario Hockey Academy, right? They're a good group. There's a ton of really good prep schools too. I'll do a video on that maybe at some point too. Prep schools and academies are gaining a lot of steam. They're developing these really high-end kids, and yeah, I mean, there's tons of good prep schools, and I think there's going to be a real interesting development on whether or not these prep schools are still going to get the same elite kids, because the funnel seems to be changing quite a bit. But that's something we'll just have to check as things go along here. Mickey, nope, you explained it well. That's my goal, man. Hopefully I do that all the time. We'll jump back here now. Another American picked, Ethan Zhang. I think I mentioned him earlier in the pod. And on the stream. So Ethan's a good player. I would have thought he was another American kid that I think deserves a lot of notoriety. They seem to really be dipping into Texas here. Both American kids were from Texas. I am surprised. I mean, Zhang was probably the best kid from Texas, I felt, in terms of guys that could be ranked in the first round. I really like what he does as a player. I think he's somebody who might not come over this year. He might be more next year. We'll have to see. But Tri-City gets a really good player there in Ethan Zhang, and he's definitely somebody who should acclimate pretty well in the National Hockey League. Penticton goes here, and they did not waste any time. They went and take Liam Bort. Bort is a pretty good player as well. I think I had Bort on the board. Yeah, Bort was 24 for me, so not too far off. I like him a lot. It's very cool to see what he's able to do as a player. He was on that powerhouse Northern Alberta Extreme team and was a pretty effective player. I think he'll be somebody who acclimates pretty well at Penticton. Skills, you should be really happy with this pick. I think he's a really quality player that probably starts as a bottom six guy, but in a couple years could be a guy that becomes a fan favorite by being just a really good, effective all-around player. You'll be happy. You'll be happy. So skills directly at you, I give my check of approval for this selection. And Mickey says, it's really great to see more people in the chat. I like this channel, especially for the breakdown on junior national players. Thanks, Mick. Mick's always been in the chat, so we're getting there. I think it'll happen, Mick. It's the group is growing, and it's great to see. This is actually, I think, my second most popular video on the channel since I've launched. So I had a really big stream that kind of allowed me to get a lot of subscribers. I did a day 2 stream for the NHL draft a couple years ago that really kind of got my channel more notoriety, but keep spreading the gospel and keep sharing, because I enjoy talking, and I like when these chats are a little more full because it allows me to really kind of get in the zone. And it doesn't force me to have to come up with stuff on the spot. So if you really enjoy this style of content, one, I appreciate you being in here, but 2, would love to see you subscribe and we can keep chatting more. It just makes it fun for me too, and it makes it fun for the people that learn a lot too in the chats. So thanks for that, Mick. Appreciate you as always. All right, we got 3 more picks here. So we're getting through here to the brass tacks. We got a few more selections, and then what I'll do is I'll put a post up in the community post with my ranks probably later tonight, with guys to watch in round 2, and then I won't be able to do a round 2 stream, unfortunately, but I will probably do maybe an WHL draft recap. Maybe this weekend I'll do like a quick brief video, and maybe we'll talk more about some other things, maybe the junior hockey playoffs. We can probably get into maybe some other stuff. Maybe I'll talk about more kids to watch in some various draft years and things like that. So I'll defer to you guys on what you guys want for content. You guys kind of drive what I put out anyway outside of the draft stuff, and maybe I'll do that. What I'll do is I'll probably do like a recap of the U18s. I'll probably do a few other things, and we'll kind of go from there. So, but we'll see where things go. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble. I didn't mean to sound like a ramble, but that's what happens when you're 3 hours into a stream, right? Sleeve says, go Nixon Gaudette. Yeah, Nixon's a pretty good player. He deserves some good notoriety for sure. I don't know if he'll get picked today, but he should get picked tomorrow for sure. But yeah, hey, rooting for him too, right? Good stuff, peeps. Again, like I said, if you're new, feel free to be in the chat with everybody else here. Pool's nice, water's fine. Be in the chat. Let's see here. Medicine Hat is probably a best player available type team. I think they'll just take a chalk pick. Nice transition there, because I'll tell you where I think the chalk pick is. I've mentioned Moulton, so I'm not going to mention him anymore. Another guy I think who make a lot of sense here is Ethan Pitts, Mateo Dufour. William Thompson is a guy I really like too. I haven't mentioned him on the stream yet here, but I like him as a player as well. It looks like they took they literally took Chris Osgood's kid. Wow. So yeah, I thought he would be more OHL draft, but obviously there might be some confusion in the chat. So I'm going to clarify here as to why he was able to be selected for Michigan. So kids in major junior that have fathers that played in respective leagues have the opportunity to also pursue that same eligibility. So because Chris Osgood was a former Medicine Hat Tiger, he's allowed to then be a WHL eligible player. So that's why Max Osgood selected here. He played for Little Caesars this past year, was a pretty good player for them, a really impactful player. I'm surprised he was a first round pick, I'll be honest, but he wasn't too far off. I would have probably put him in comparison to this class in like the second or third round. So it's not a crazy off the board pick or anything. But you're getting a player that's real clutch. He was really important to them at the U15 Nationals this year. He won the game. He scored the game winner in like triple overtime, I want to say. Not overly flashy, but just super effective. I think he'll acclimate pretty well to the Western Hockey League. I don't know if I see like more than a middle six forward in the Western Hockey League, but he's a guy who's a pretty quality player. So Molman says, so it's like another Luke Warner type pick. Exactly. Yep. So yeah, as long as your family member, like one kid who's going to be a consideration in the OHL draft here this year is John Sims' kid, Ewan Sim. He will likely be a high-end OHL draft pick this year because he has the ability to be in that league. So he might be there or he might be in the queue, but he's got options for both because of familial ties. So so it's exactly like you said. All right. Let's see here. We got 2 more picks remaining. Swift Current's got both of them here. And then obviously the rest of this action after these next 2 picks happens tomorrow. So I will probably stay on for a little bit longer as long as people want me to stay on. And then I'll probably end up ending at like 10:30 is kind of where I'm leaning. So if you have any questions post this stream and want to put them in the chat later, or if you want to comment on the video, feel free to do so. 1, it helps me share this around other people that are just like us. And 2, just helps me because I'll just answer them when I can. So it looks like Jackson Bradbeer is the selection here, another shorter defenseman. A guy who honestly is a pretty effective player. He was an interesting guy to watch going into the draft this year. Not surprised to see him in the first round. I didn't mention him earlier, but I probably should have. He's a step below like Vickers and Morrison, but a good player nonetheless. I think he was in that next tier of players, so it's a good selection there by Swift Current. And then just the last pick here, and then we'll kind of go into Q&A, and then I'll cut it at 10:30. So we got here Jackson Bradbeer. And so Elliot says he'll be helpful all around. I'm assuming you're referring to Osgood. That's my guess. But if that's the case and you're referring to Osgood, he will be. He's a very good player. Let's see here. Yeah, you were. Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Elliot. So again, like I said, we've been talking a lot of Western Hockey League draft, but afterwards we can talk about anything you guys want, really, as long as it's within the realm of hockey. I don't mind helping people with their personal issues, but this isn't the outlet to do it. So if you guys have any questions, like internationally with the U18s, maybe recently, draft related, whether it's this year, next year, the following year, you want to talk about some kid in 2032, feel free. I may not know that kid, but like whatever, we can talk about it. And then we'll just see where things go. But I'll do kind of a Q&A. I normally do a Q&A for those that aren't familiar. At all of these streams, I always try to keep some portion of it for like questions and answers that you guys have in the hockey world. And then just like to answer them if I know the answer. And if I don't know the answer, I'll probably return back to you with an answer. But just a way to keep it more engaging and more fun, because it really shouldn't just be on one topic. If you have a question, feel free to shoot it my way and we'll chat it out and see what makes the most sense, right? Because that's the most fun, right? When you're talking hockey with others. Mickey knows. He's told me, and he said it in several streams. He's looking for community, right? As am I. Molman says they should go for Pellick, local forward. His mom was in the chat earlier. She's still here. Wave high if you are. Hopefully he gets picked here. That'd be a cool way to kind of make this full circle. But his mom was in the chat asking for the stream, which is really funny because it's not anything I would have ever anticipated. But, kudos to them for it. And like I said, the other thing too is this stream will be on recording. So if you guys have been in and out and want to watch this in full, feel free to do so. It will live and exist on the YouTube channel just like any other video would. And watch it when you can. Obviously, it's 3 hours. The fact that any of you are here for more than 20 minutes is cool. But yeah, it's just really been cool to follow along with you guys, and we're all kind of reacting together as we come along here. And like I said, if you like this style content, you like being able to engage and have a community to talk to, this is the place to be, and follow along if that's the case. But yeah, Pellick, like I said, Molman, that wouldn't be a bad selection at all. Oh yeah, Mickey. Okay. Did you ever get a chance to scout Nikita Sherbakov? I'm hoping Calgary takes him. They need a left-hand D. Yeah, so I did. I remember the game you commented to me. I watched that. God, I want to say that was closer to like a few weeks ago. I'll be honest, man. Like I don't understand why people have him in the first round, Mickey. I'll be brutally honest with you. I think he's a big kid. I think he's got good skating. I just don't know why people like him. I guess it's a harsh thing to say, but like he looks very much like he's a project. And to me, you select guys like that in like the third and fourth round. And I know that's very contrary to what the public sphere is saying, but I really do believe that he's not this like transcendental talent that deserves to be in the first round consideration. I just think it's an interesting thing that is kind of a thing that's been in scouting circles in general over the last few years, is they see a kid who can skate really well and looks very raw, and they think it's an instant first rounder. I think for left-handed D, there's a few options that are available for sure. It just depends on what you're exactly looking for. Calgary for you, because you're thinking 6, I'm thinking, Mickey, the perfect fit for me is Carson Karels for Calgary. I think that kid is exactly what a Calgary defenseman is. He's a Sutter-like guy, really quality talent, good player overall. Like I just really think there's a real quality to Karels, and I think if you're taking him at 6, it's not a bad idea. Like I like him as a player. I worry about the offense a little bit, but he fits. He's one of the best defensive guys eligible in the 26th draft. I think he's a real quality defenseman overall, good stick work, great breakout pass. He does a lot of things really well and brings a physical element to the game. So he will have a career for 10, 15 years in the National Hockey League. That's my lean for Calgary. And he's a lefty, so that would help. But yeah, that's my thought on Sherbakov. I'm not trying to be too critical, but that's just what I saw, And I keep it real, Nick. So and I saw you made a comment there. I'll get to it in a minute. You were clarifying something, so all good. Elliot says, did you expect Owen Kraft to be taken so early in the phase 1 draft? No. In succinct, short fashion, no. Good player, though. I just was shocked to see him that high. But I'll leave it there. But yeah, I agree. I did not expect that. Molman says, there are quite a few in sports scouting who just simply piggyback off of what others say. And I try not to do that. It's a very fair point you're making. Like, I really try my best to have my own opinion and not let others cloud that judgment. And there are times where, like, I'll admit I was wrong about Matt Schaefer. Like, I thought he was a good player. I did not think he was going to be this number 1 defenseman that stood out. And there are times where my lens gets adapted and it's wrong, and I'm human, and that happens. But there are other times, like one guy that was very not thought of very highly or known was Igor Chinnikov at the time. And I didn't have a channel at this time, so I can't really show you proof of it, but I had him being a first-round talent at that time because his production was so unbelievable. And so when Sportsnet didn't know anything about him, I was shocked because like anybody that would do their due diligence would have known that he was producing at a pretty high level. And so I had him at I didn't have him like at the exact rank, obviously, but I had him at like 28, 29. And he went top 20. Jorma Kekalainen saw it. I saw it. Others probably saw it and just wasn't publicly known. But I think that's so important to have your own lens and opinion and sharpen that lens. It's just like a knife, right? You sharpen it to where you get your lens at the right scope and the right perspective, and eventually you get it right. It's just, it takes years. And I've been watching hockey for as long as I can walk. So like I've had a lot of years to develop this sense. So, and sometimes I'm not right or sometimes I'm wrong. All right, here's some Mickey says, I always saw him at the top of the second. You're like, yeah, Sherbakov at the top of the second. I think a lot of people do. Like, I don't think you're alone in that, Mick. And then he said, no, not at 6. I saw him at the top of the second for Calgary. So you're thinking like, yeah, like 38. I could see a 38 for Sherbakov. I mean, it's not the craziest thing in the world. If Simon Wang went as high as he did last year, which that's a whole thing anyway, but like, I mean, if you think he's better than Simon Wang was, and Simon Wang went 33rd. So it's not the craziest thing in the world to think he'd go 38. I just personally think he would be lower than that for me, but I could be wrong too. All right, let me get to the last pick here, and then I'll get more to the Q&A. But Nathan Roberts was the last pick of the first round, and that ends the first round for the WHL draft. So yeah, best available guys. I will put that out in a community post. We'll talk about that more later. So pay attention for those that want to stay on and watch. I'll put that on the community post, and I'll also probably post to Twitter later tonight. So if you're not following me on X as well, do so, because I also put stuff on here that I don't put on the YouTube channel. So I put a lot of different, those are the two platforms I'm mainly on. And then I think once I hit like 500 or 1,000 subscribers, I might like to do a TikTok and maybe do some shorter form videos. So let me know if you would like that as well, because I may do that in the near future, probably next year. So we'll see what happens here. But yeah, so the first round's done. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. I don't need to do a recap because if you're on here, you probably know what's going on. And I'll just show my ugly mug. You can see my Wings mug in the back. Sorry, it's a little messy in the office, but maybe one day I'll get a green screen back here. So yeah, so now it's just Q&A. If you guys want to stick around, great. If not, I understand. It's been a long video, so don't feel compelled to stay. It's just if you want to, great. Anyway, yeah, we'll go for another like 20-ish minutes here, and then I will probably roll out. Yeah, we can keep going and talk more. But Moleman says here, though I do understand your point, Sportsnet has always sucked complete balls, or even worse, ESPN. You know, the thing that's annoying about Sportsnet is the quality is, there's so much potential to be really good with Sportsnet. And I think, honestly, I will disagree with you that I think they're actually better than ESPN, because they don't have like the Sam Cosentinos or the like the Elliot Freemans of the world. Like, there's not an equivalent source there. And obviously, I mean, I'm a Merrick stan. Like, Jeff Merrick is the essential follow for those that really like junior hockey, and I hope to one day maybe be in that sort of scope. I have an obsessive quality like that, which is why I have the channel. But you know, there's a wealth of resources out there, and he's one of the best. But yeah, Sportsnet has always had this like lack of depth sometimes with coverage. And it's surprising given that they're like the Canadian rights holder. You'd think there'd be a lot more there, but for whatever reason, that's not the case. So it is what it is, and whatever. They'll figure it out one day. We'll go now to Elliot here. Same. I thought they would have taken somebody with more size and played with a higher level, like a Soren Sumweber or Tristan Will. Yeah, both of those would have made sense too. I mean, I totally understand that too. Elliot, make sure you checked out my phase 1 draft video, by the way, too. I did one a couple of days ago. It's a long video, so don't feel the need to watch all of it, but I do have some thoughts and some different guys. So feel free to peruse around if you haven't already. But it'll, yeah. So, all right, y'all, Q&A is open. I'm going to take a quick trip to the restroom real quick and come right back. But we can talk more about the, whatever you guys want to talk about. So feel free to leave those questions off to the side, and then I will get back and we will do the last like 20-ish minutes of questions. So give me a sec and I'll be right back and we'll finish this up. All right, clearly I eliminated some people. Sorry. God forbid I go to the restroom, right? So Molman says second round picks have more value than past drafts, given how many teams seem to take projects to their first round picks. It does feel like that. I just think the gapping too with like a lot of these classes for like when you talk NHL or anything like that. It could be anywhere from 25 to 60. There isn't a ton of difference. In those drafts, it just depends on where things are at. But it's not a crazy thing. That's for sure. Total random question. What was your first concert? Oh boy. What was my first concert? Why do I want to say Macklemore? That's a tough scene, but yeah, I want to say it was Macklemore. I think that's what it was. I think it was Macklemore. Yeah, I think so, Mick. I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure it was Macklemore. Concerts were a late thing for me, but I'll digress there. Elliot says, do you have any opinions on the commitment Terrence Smith had to University of Minnesota? Their blue line seems pretty loaded for the kids coming in. I'm not the biggest Terrence Smith guy personally. I think he's a decent player. I just don't know that he'll be like a needle mover for Minnesota. So I don't really have like a strong opinion on what I think he'll do. But my thought is that like, I mean, he tops out maybe as a 4 there, like maybe second pairing guy that you kind of supplement, but I wouldn't be too crazy upset any which way about having him be a Minnesota commit. I just think they're going to recruit kids that are better. That's just kind of my thought. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to give it another 15 minutes and then I'll head out at 10:30, but at least Eastern time here. Yeah, we'll keep rolling along here. Questions can be anything draft related. It could be anything, prospect related in general. Feel free to ask whatever. We'll go here. Molman now says, are we going to see any Verhoffs go to college in the 09 group? Let me look. Off the top of my head, I think DuPont would be best served to go NCAA. I think he's somebody who would benefit from going NCAA. I don't know how much more he has to prove at the Western Hockey League level. I'll be brutally honest. I think that kid has done so much already. I do think, off initial glance, let's see who else. Sorry, I'm pulling up. My computer is doing what it can right now. Let me go there. 09 group in the 27s. Carter Meyer might be somebody who decides to forego the U18 program, pulls a Horkoff, and might go NCAA. I think either that or he goes QMJHL and plays for Quebec. Both would be good resources and situations for him. It wouldn't surprise me either way. I could see that definitely happening. Sammy Nelson might be a guy who I actually think he's a late born 08, so that's probably not applicable. Outside of that, I mean, those are the two. I don't know that like Meyer and DuPont are the only two that stick out to me right now that would Verhoff it, like you said. Those two seem to be the most suitable for the NCAA. And then I think after that, like kids are going to make their individual decisions, and whether that makes sense or not, it just depends. But that's kind of where I see those two. Just like nobody's Terrence Smith tier players, or is DuPont going to depart? I'm assuming you're alluding to that. I kind of answered that already. What are your predictions for round 2 of the NHL draft? I mean, there's a ton of guys that could go in round 2. I mean, it's hard to say, Elliot, because you could have a guy like Igor Shilov drop to the second round. Like, personally, I have him top 10, but like he's a very polarizing player. Axel Elofsson is a really gifted player. I have in my late first. He's probably going to be more of a late second round guy. But I think he's very similar to Axel Sandin Pellikka. If you watched him at all this year, he plays very similarly to him. You know, I mean, it's a loaded question, but there's a few guys there that I would value the same. And Elliot, you can see in I have a few videos where I get into some guys that I think are sleepers. I would check in on those. And even the guys I have in my mock draft I did in April, there's a few guys that I probably have higher than most would, which allows that thought to be maybe some guys that I have in my late first probably go the second. So I would check those out. Just to give you an excuse to look at my other content. And we'll go here now. Molman, some players are torn between loyalty and outgrowing their major junior franchise. Of course, there's money to consider too. 100% there is. I mean, that's a decision for all of these kids. Elliot, thanks for the thumbs up. And like I said, Elliot, I'm not trying to like blow you off or anything. That's just my opinions are a little bit more versed there, and I'm 3 hours in, so I want to give you a good answer. In your opinion, why is Wyatt Cullen climbing up the draft board? Honestly, it's just seeing the upside grow. I mean, recency bias is a hell of a thing, and he had an excellent U18s. That's as simple as that, Mick. I mean, that's really what it is he had a really good U18s. He's shown some real upside. He's got bloodlines. He's a good skater. All those things have factored into him climbing up draft boards for sure. Shut out, please. What does shut out mean? What are you getting at here? Clarify for that me. Clarify that for me. All right, keep throwing questions around. You got me for another 10 minutes, peeps, and then I'm gonna have to roll out. Also, if you guys have content ideas, different things you want to have posted or different videos created, put them in the comments even after this stream ends. You know, I'm shocked there's still 20 people on here. This is awesome. I usually draw about like 8 to 10 people on a stream, so it's great to see that there's more here. Like I said, I got more streams coming up in the future, like in the next couple of months. I'm going to do an OHL draft stream. I'm going to do a QMJHL draft stream. I've got the draft. I'm going to be doing a day one for sure for the draft. Unfortunately, I can't do a day 2 draft one because I have commitments elsewhere. But I'll probably do a recap video of that the day after on that Sunday. Yeah, I mean, just thanks for those that'll be on here. Let me keep going here. I'll find something to ask. Do your thing, Molman. And then you said you probably could do a monthly stream about this kind of stuff for an hour or so if you want to increase subs. I've kind of been doing that. I mean, I've been doing like Molman. Honestly, I would give you the opportunity to just really look at all my content because like I've been doing one a week and you know, just of different things. And I try to, like I said, I source a lot of this content from you guys because it's what you guys want to hear. And I don't want to speak on anything that's boring. So if you guys find value in what I'm saying, like I'd rather it be like something you enjoy as opposed to something I'm just making up to fill content. So, but it's a good idea. Thank you for that. All right, man, 3.5 hours. I've been ripping through this, eh? Yeah, don't take it as a short thing, Molman. I was just saying that, like in general, I've been putting a lot out. But what's the weakest draft over the last 5 years? Honestly, pre-draft, I thought the 25 draft was really weak, but the development of a lot of those guys have really surprised me. Like, I like what's come out of the grouping. Like, and I say more so that the 25 draft, like the top end was there, but like I felt like my lists are usually like by the time draft hits 80 to 110 players like that I've like thought are viable draft eligibles. And I think I had like 46 last year. Like I didn't have a lot. And that was like me thinning the crowd, because like how I evaluate is I will pull a list of probably like 300 to 350 kids that I just kind of watch over the year. And then over the year, I kind of look, and if there's viewings that I think there's a certain threshold, I kind of look for it. If they don't hit it, I tend to drop them off and then like reevaluate and add them back on if I feel like they make sense. And I kind of just go from there. But anyway, yeah, I would say the 25 draft depth wise is where I would say it's weakest. The rest of the drafts, honestly, have produced talent. Like I think it's hard to quantify. Maybe 21 would be something that might be a little bit of a weaker draft, but we'll figure that out here. All right, we got some shenanigans going on in the chat. Joey Boro says, I'm so horny to be here. Okay. It's not what I'm achieving, but glad you enjoy the content. Molman, another sub idea. You should make ratings for players. Morons like me love ratings. I mean, what as far as ratings, are you talking like on like an 8.0 scale, and I just kind of rate guys on skating, shooting, and all that? I could do that. That's a definite idea for sure. Some of the scout sites have player ratings for drafts. I'm assuming that's what you mean. If you want me to do that, that's something I can keep in mind for sure. It's in the idea box. I'll make it happen. Joey Boro says, ratings turn me on. Bro, you got to chill out, man. I know it's late, but you got to chill out. I know you're trying. I know you enjoy it, and that's great, but you got to relax, man. Like, so, I mean, obviously you got to be subscribed, I would assume. That's funny. All right, let's keep rolling here. All right, 332. We're still 21 deep, man. Thanks, guys. Joey says, okay, I'll stop. Sounds good, brother. How do you break down draft predictions? Like, just feels like a look. Especially getting in the later picks. It's a lot, but I love doing it. Like, I do. Like, I'll sit there and like at lunch at work, look up some prospects. Like, this is just, it's something I've done for a long time. So like for me, it's just a habit, but that's kind of, it's just something I love doing. I don't know. Like, it's always been a thing I've done. It started with hockey cards. It's kind of how I got into like being so obsessive, because I just love the stats and the figures and looking at the players and comparing them. And then that kind of led me to like, I played hockey growing up. So I played roller hockey, couldn't afford ice. So I just played roller and played with some really high end kids that some of them are now playing pro in ice. And I just grew obsessed with it. And that's kind of what's led to what I am today. So TLDR of how I got into this space. But name a player in the upcoming NHL draft that no one is talking about. Who's your late pick draft crush? Oof. I have those every year. Let me pull up my rankings real quick for you guys. I'm not going to show the ranking just because I don't really feel like sharing my screen, but I'll give you a few names here that I can give you at least 5 or 6 that like very little people are talking about that I think will get drafted. In terms of perception, he's growing a lot. Is Gleb Pugachev, plays in the KHL. I think that kid's a bona fide first rounder, and I think a lot of people will talk about him being a guy that he'll be a riser for sure. I think Pugachev is a real superstar, one of the better Russians available this year. Kulibiakin for Halifax. I think that kid's dynamite. He defensively, he's got a lot of work, but he's a really gifted, talented player. I like him a lot. Offensively, he's one of the more creative guys that nobody's really talking about. Late round wise, I've been talking about Matthias Van Hanen for 2 years now. I'm shocked he hasn't been drafted. He's as an overager, to me, the top overager, should be in like third round consideration, if not minimum second. Molgachev from Calgary, the Hitman, really good player. And goaltender, I'll give you one here. Denai Shaikov, plays for Gatineau, starter. Reminds me a lot of Peter Mrazek. Very wild in the net, but so damn athletic and such a good acrobatic save. Like he will find his way just because he battles so well for pucks. Those are a few names to keep in mind. And then, yeah, I was just clarifying for that. Okay, and then I'm going to do these last three. If you guys have any comments later and you think of them after the stream, throw them in the chat and I'll get to them. Probably not tonight, but at some point. What I see for prospects is when you see a fall off, they're two-way checkers or heart players. You'll get a heart kid late in the draft. Well, you can find them on the waiver wire too. You know, sometimes prospects have weird situations, right? Like, perfect example, that's Matvey Michkov. The poor kid went through his dad passing away, went through coming to a new culture. I don't think got the support he needed. Like, there's a really in-depth article about his struggles from like one of the Philadelphia beat writers. And the more you read on it, the more you can understand why he hasn't become the player that everybody thought he would be. And I still think there's a chance for him to become like a Bedard-like talent. Like, that's not a crazy thing for Michkov. He's such a genius when it comes to making passes, scoring on the ice. Like, he's a real savant of the game. But sometimes it's off ice stuff that really limits you on ice too. But you're bang on there, Pontified. You're bang on. I love spider graphs for prospects. Yeah, I'll have to find a generator maybe for it. I'll do something like that, and we can figure something out. And then, Molman, one last question here. Aside from the top four, who are your next two best three players ever? I'm a big Bossy fan. I think Yager's earned a spot. Just from a longevity perspective, yeah, I would agree. Like Yager, I mean, obviously, Gratz, Lemieux. I think McDavid will be there in time. Kucherov, to me, is a guy who doesn't get a lot of – like, he gets notoriety currently, but at the same time, you don't hear him – you hear him more about current best players as opposed to legacy best players. And I think before it's all said and done with Kucherov's career, he will be in that top 10 of all time, if not top 5 of all time consideration with the Stanley Cups, the scoring ability, everything that comes with him. He's just such an unbelievably gifted player and a guy who is a perfect example of overthinking when it comes to evaluation. Like, the kid dominated the U18s and still went in the second round because everybody was just so scared of the Russian factor. Sometimes guys are just good and you just have to take it at face value. And, that's just the way it is sometimes. So, all right, with that, I've been going for too long, guys, almost 4 hours. So I'm going to end it here. Thank you guys so much. It's a fun stream. Fun to get new people on here. Hope you enjoy the content. Keep plugging along. If you're subscribed, do so. If you're new, subscribe along, follow along. I'll be doing more streams probably later next week. But anybody who stay on here more than 20 minutes, you're the bomb.com. You're why I do this stuff. I appreciate all you. Keep asking away. Keep asking questions. I'll get to them eventually. And consider this a new beginning for y'all. And if you're existing, I appreciate you. Otherwise, au revoir to everybody else. And best of luck to y'all. Have a good night, peeps.